Chapter 10:30. Be new to one, begging for subscriptions, begging for monthly tickets. Shenzhen was a legendary city. This city had given birth to many legends. It took more than 30 years to develop from a small fishing village to an international metropolis. It could be seen how fast Shenzhen was developing. The history of reform and opening up was, in fact, a history of Shenzhen's development. Everyone knew that going north to Shenzhen was the only way to give face to Guangzhou. It should be known that the GDP of Shenzhen was hundreds of billions more than that of the provincial capital, Guangzhou. Not to mention the provincial capital, Guangzhou, the development of provincial capital cities had always been like this. There was no need to mention Beijing, because Beijing was the capital. This was the chosen one, and no one could challenge him. Not to mention Shanghai. Since the end of the Qing dynasty, Shanghai had become one of the most prosperous cities in East Asia, with 10 miles of foreign concessions. This was not just for show. Therefore, this could better highlight the difference of Shenzhen. In the beginning, it was only built because it was adjacent to Hong Kong. Now, it had long jumped out of the original plan. It was a high-tech city, an internet city, and an international financial city. Countless people wanted to establish a foothold here, and even more so, many big shots wanted to make a name for themselves here. Therefore, there were more legends here. Qin Sheng asked Chongbaji to drive around Shenan Avenue. Qin Sheng asked Chongbaji to drive around Shenan Avenue. On both sides of Shenan Avenue were the headquarters of well-known enterprises. Unlike the headquarters of the central enterprises on Chong and Avenue and the financial buildings in Lujiazui, almost all the headquarters here were private enterprises. The owner of each building could write a legendary autobiography. Therefore, when Qin Sheng first came to Shenzhen, he would come here. Many of the entrepreneurs here were his idols, because this place was more in line with the goals of most people, while the goals on Chong and Avenue were destined to be unattainable. After a round, Qin Sheng finally found the 2 stone lions that a certain big shot had mentioned. This was just one of the many legends in Shenzhen. The 2 stone lions stood at the entrance of the financial building. The building looked a little old and was not as dazzling as the buildings in Qianhai and Shenzhen Bay. However, the 2 stone lions were indeed very majestic. Many people should know this legendary story. Back then, a big shot with a few thousand yuan came to Shenzhen. He happened to pass by this building to do something. He wanted to make a name for himself here one day. So he touched the stone lion and prayed, saying that he hoped to earn more money. Later, this big shot became one of the city's legends. Many parts of the stone lions were covered with paste. It was estimated that there were many people who had touched them. Maybe they all wanted to get some luck. Qin Sheng was not here to pray for blessings and earn more money. He just wanted to walk around here. Many passersby looked at Qin Sheng with a knowing look in their eyes. It seemed that everyone also thought that Qin Sheng was here for luck. Lao Chong, brother Lei, come and touch them and get some luck, Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. He did not bring anyone else, nor did he meet up with Yi Wei and Fu Rong. He came here alone to walk around. Lao Chong did not believe in this. He smiled and said, I won't touch them. Hao Lei, on the other hand, was skeptical. He touched them again and said, there doesn't seem to be anything special. Of course, there is nothing special. Otherwise, do you think you can make a few million just by touching them? These 2 stone lions have been moved to God knows where. Qin Sheng laughed and said. Hao Lei thought about it and agreed. Even if he could win a 5 million lottery, this place would have been broken by people. Qin Sheng looked at the buildings not far away from Shenan Avenue and said, as a man, if you want to stimulate your inner desire, you have to go to 3 places. One is Chong, an avenue, one is Lujiazui, and the last one is Shenan Avenue. I've been to all 3. Why didn't I find my desire? Hao Lei retorted. Qin Sheng said impatiently, you only have Han Bing in your heart now. What kind of desire do you have? Let's go back to the hotel for lunch, then sleep and drink tonight. Beijing is still a bit cold. Shenzhen's weather is really comfortable, but it's only comfortable now. It will get hot in a few days. In the evening, Zheng Xinjian, a classmate of Tsinghua University's advanced research class, invited Qin Sheng to dinner. Since the gathering in Beijing before the New Year, Qin Sheng said he would come to Shenzhen soon. Zhang Xingjian had been asking Qin Sheng when he would come, so Qin Sheng called him as soon as he arrived in Shenzhen. If Zhang Xingjian knew that Qin Sheng was coming and did not look for him, he would probably make fun of him later. Zhang Xingjian was the oldest among them. He was 35 years old now. Similarly, he was relatively successful because the high-tech company he founded had been listed on NASDAQ in the United States. Although many of his classmates' families did not lack listed companies, such as the main board of Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, New York, NASDAQ, and Europe, there were not many like him who relied on hard power to start a business and get listed. Although the family behind the scenes contributed a lot of money and resources, it was a high-tech company after all. If you did not understand it, then there was no way you could play. This was not like the financial venture capital, where you only needed to find a professional to verify the business model and invest if you thought it was reliable. This really needed technical research and development. Who asked Zhang Xingjian to be a talented graduate of MIT? Qin Sheng did not like to go to those high-end restaurants. He liked to go to local places with local characteristics and eat some local snacks. Therefore, he told Zhang Xingjian in advance. This was also to treat Zhang Xingjian as an outsider. If Zhang Xingjian was an outsider, he could only follow the host's wishes. Therefore, Zhang Xingjian asked Qin Sheng to go to the marine world on the other side of Hohai. Because his company had just moved to Qinghai, he now lived in a villa area on the other side of Hohai, which was relatively more convenient. Moreover, this place was more prosperous, especially this marine world. There were many special restaurants or bars nearby. Every night, it would be very lively, and there were many beautiful women. Who asked Qin Sheng to find a place with many beautiful women? The place that Zhang Xingjian booked was an open-air restaurant, which was on the cruise ship in the marine world. Sitting here, one could overlook the surrounding scenery, and it was more suitable for admiring beautiful women. Although the taste of this restaurant was average, it also made some special dishes in Shenzhen. Zhang Xingjian knew that Qin Sheng did not care about these things, so it did not matter, as long as Qin Sheng was happy. When Qin Sheng arrived, Zhang Xingjian was already sitting there with a friend, a young man who was about his age. Chang Baji and Hao Lei randomly found a seat nearby, which was only a few steps away from Qin Sheng. After all, they had already arrived in Shenzhen. They still had to be careful of Heyong. Lao Zheng, it's a little embarrassing to let you, the CEO of a listed company, eat at this place. Zhang Xingjian waved his hand to greet Qin Sheng as soon as he walked over. He was slightly more than 1.7 meters tall, so Han Su and the others called him Little Guangdong. Zhang Xingjian did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "My young master Qin, I should be the one saying this. When I went to Beijing, you invited me to places that were high class and high class. When you came to Shenzhen, I treated you to an open-air restaurant that costs less than 200 yuan per person. If my classmates found out about this, I would be laughed at. All right, let's not insult each other. There are many beautiful women here. Seems like this is your old place." Along the way, Qin Sheng saw all kinds of beautiful women, many of whom were white-collar workers or freshly graduated college students. No wonder it was so prosperous and lively. At this time, Zhang Xingjian introduced his friend to Qin Sheng and said, "Lao Qin, this is the star of Shenzhen's financial circle, Dong Yang, the founder and CEO of Huashan Capital. He is also the lead investor of our company's C-Series. Huashan Capital has only been established for less than 5 years and has invested in many excellent companies. This guy has made a lot of money from me. Didn't you say that you wanted to get to know the big shots of Shenzhen's venture capital industry? I don't know many of them, and I'm not familiar with them, but this guy knows all of them. Today, I brought him to you." Qin Sheng took the initiative to greet him and said, "No wonder I smelled money from afar. Look at him. He must be worth hundreds of thousands of yuan. Lao Zheng, you are the CEO? Why are you dressed like a code farmer? I don't know how you found a wife." Dong Yang was dressed very formally. It looked like a custom-made suit. Even the buttons and pins were custom-made, not to mention the watch on his wrist, which was not cheaper than Qin Sheng's watch. Only people in finance would care so much about their image. "I'm not a star. If you want to talk about the big shots of Shenzhen's financial circle, Then Chang, and is definitely the real big shot, Dong Yang, who looked very spirited, said with a smile. Other than Ping, and which was undoubtedly the leader of Shenzhen's financial circle, Chang, and was also not to be underestimated. It seemed that Zheng Xinjian had already told Dong Yang about his background. Otherwise, Dong Yang would not directly say that he was from Chang'an. Qin Sheng said happily, "Let's not flatter each other. Chang and his Chang'an. I'm just a young man who is ready to enter the circle. I hope Brother Dong can be my guide." They had already gotten to know each other. At this time, Zheng Xinjian asked, "What would you like to drink? Liquor, red, or beer?" "Don't drink liquor. We don't like liquor here." "Anything is fine." Qin Sheng had always been open to drinking. Besides, alcohol was the most direct thing to promote a man's feelings, which was why China's alcohol culture was so broad and profound. In the end, Zheng Xinjian still chose liquor. It was not suitable to drink red wine here, and he felt that he could not bring out beer, so he could only choose liquor. After all, people in Shenzhen liked to drink liquor. They talked about some things in the capital circle. Qin Sheng said a lot of gossip, which he had naturally heard more than anyone else. Dong Yang also talked about the venture capital circle in Shenzhen and which industries were more popular recently. Zheng Xinjian changed the topic and said, "Lao Qin, what are you doing in Shenzhen this time? How long are you going to stay?" Qin Sheng said casually, "Nothing much, just dealing with some trivial things at home. Maybe 10 days to half a month." When Zheng Xinjian heard that Qin Sheng was going to stay for so long, it was obviously not a trivial thing. He smiled and said, "Your Qin family is a big family. I guess the trivial things you deal with can shock the capital circle in Shenzhen. Is there any news leaked so that we can make early plans? This should not be insider trading, right?" "No, no, no," Dong Yang said happily. The headquarters of the two big insurance companies in Chang and were in Shenzhen. He was really curious about why Qin came to Shenzhen, but he was embarrassed to ask. After all, he had just met Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not hide it. Even if everyone knew about it, it would not be a big deal. It was an open plan to deal with He Yong. He did not need any tricks. So he said directly, "Do you know He Yong?" After Qin Sheng said this name, Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang looked at each other. How could they not know He Yong? They just did not know He Yong's relationship with the Qin family. At this time, Qin Sheng's phone rang. He took out his phone and saw that it was Fong Tianai. He guessed that Fong Tianai was asking if he had arrived in Shenzhen. Qin Sheng knew that Fong Tianai was in Guangzhou. He would go there in 2 days, so he did not call him. Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang gestured for Qin Sheng to answer the phone first. After Qin Sheng answered the phone, he knew that Fong Tianai was in Shenzhen. It happened that he had nothing to do today, so he came to see Qin Sheng. Of course, Qin Sheng could not refuse, so he had to agree. Chapter 1031. Shenzhen was a paradise for adventurers, just like Shanghai in the past. Countless people came there with dreams. It was the same in Shenzhen. After the reform and opening up, the trend of doing business surged. Many ambitious and dreamy people from all over the country came to Shenzhen to dig for gold. Many of them later became the city's legends, but how many of them eventually died without a name? Who could remember them? In the end, these stories only existed in their memories. Life was so cruel. Winner takes all. Qin Sheng liked Shenzhen very much. He had been here once when he traveled 2 years ago. But that time, he passed by in a hurry and did not carefully appreciate the charm of this city. This time, Qin Sheng definitely wanted to visit this city. It would be best if he could visit those legends in the past. After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, he said, "A friend knows that I'm coming to Shenzhen. He said that he happened to be in Shenzhen and wanted to come over to meet me." "Yo, a friend who can make you nod and come over? What kind of friend? A beauty?" Zheng Xinjian asked with a smile. Anyway, he was not a decent man. Otherwise, he would not have hung around with Han Su. Qin Sheng did not give an answer directly. He smiled and said, "You'll know when you come over. Maybe you've met them before." "Tut, tut, tut. I like to see who it is," Zheng Xinjian said disapprovingly. If it was a beauty, it would work. He had originally said that he would take Qin Sheng to the most interesting place in Shenzhen to continue the second half. It seemed that it was not going to happen today. But Qin Sheng would stay in Shenzhen for a long time. There would be plenty of opportunities. At this time, Dong Yang raised his glass and said, "Let's drink. Master Qin, I heard from Xinjiang that you can drink very well. Let's drink well today." Qin Sheng did not refuse. He smiled and drank the wine. About 20 minutes later, Fong Tianai arrived directly. Qin Sheng had already told him the specific location, so he did not call Qin Sheng again and came directly to find him. After all, he was a local tyrant in Shenzhen. He had been to this place before, but he had not been to this restaurant. He did not expect that Qin Sheng would eat here. Chang Baji saw Fong Tianai first. In addition to Fong Tianai, there were two other men following him. They did not look like Fong Tianai's friends, but bodyguards or assistants. Chang Baji quickly walked over and whispered in Qin Sheng's ear that Fong Tianai was here. Both Sheng Xinjiang and Dong Yang knew that Qin Sheng came with bodyguards. After all, young Master Qin's background was not simple. He must have offended a lot of people over these years. It was understandable that he would bring bodyguards with him. He was not as carefree as them, so they still had to work. After Chang Baji left, Qin Sheng looked at the entrance of the restaurant, only to see that Fong Tianai seemed to be looking for Qin Sheng. When Fong Tianai looked at him, Qin Sheng hurriedly waved to him. Fong Tianai greeted him with a smile and walked over. At this time, Zhang Xinjiang and Dong Yang also saw him. When Fong Tianai walked over, he gave Qin Sheng a hug before he shook hands with Qin Sheng. This kind of treatment caught Qin Sheng off guard. They had only met once. Was their relationship so close? "You are so sneaky. I told you to call me in advance when you are in Shenzhen or Guangzhou, so I can send someone to pick you up," Fong Tianai complained. Fong Tianai complained, "You were so sneaky. When I was in Beijing a few days ago, I told you to call me in advance, no matter if you arrived in Shenzhen or Guangzhou, so that I could send someone to pick you up. You were so sneaky." Fong Tianai shook his head and smiled. Then he said, "Why did you come here to eat? You are so mean." Fong Tianai shook his head and smiled. Then he said, "Why did you come here to eat? Morning. Call me, so I can take you to a good place." Zhang Xinjiang was a little uncomfortable. He wanted to say, "Dude, who the hell are you? Do you have the final say here? Is my treat today? Do you think I, Zhang Xinjiang, can't afford it? Is there any restaurant in Shenzhen that I can't afford?" Qin Sheng might have felt the subtle changes in Zhang Xinjiang and Dong Yang. He introduced, "Lao Zheng, this is Fong Lu's uncle." After Zhang Xinjiang heard this, he was a little stunned. Oh my God, what did Qin Sheng mean? When did he know Fong Lu's uncle? He didn't have much contact with Fong Lu and Yao Yao. Their relationship seemed to be very close, so Zhang Xinjiang was a little confused. As for what Fong Tianai said just now, Zhang Xinjiang had already forgotten about it. Who asked Fong Tianai to be so confident? Although the Fong family was similar to his family, Fong Tianai was an elder after all. "Hello, Uncle Fong." Zhang Xinjiang stretched out his hands and said respectfully. Fong Tianai raised his eyebrows and muttered, "Why do you call me uncle? You make me look old. Lulu is not here. Let's call me Brother Fong." Zhang Xinjiang didn't expect Fong Lu's uncle to be so funny. He looked at Qin Sheng and immediately changed the way he addressed Fong Tianai. There was no generation gap and no constraint. At this time, Qin Sheng introduced Zhang Xinjiang to Fong Tianai. "Brother Fong, this is Fong Lu's classmate, Zhang Xinjiang. This is his friend, Dong Yang, the founder of Huaxing Capital, a rising star in Shenzhen's venture capital industry." Fong Tianai looked at Zhang Xinjiang and said, Oh, you're Zhang Xinjiang. I heard Lulu talk about you. I have to thank you for taking care of her when you were in Tsinghua University. I was playing golf with your aunt in the overseas Chinese town 2 days ago. Your aunt praised you a lot. You're so young, but you're already the CEO of a listed company. You built this company on your own. You're so capable. It's all thanks to my family, Zhang Xinjiang said, a little embarrassed. He rarely mingled in the big circle in Guangdong before. He had been working hard for his company until it was listed on NASDAQ. He knew about the relationship between the Fong family and the Zheng family, but he had never seen it. Fong Tianai laughed and said, "You're being modest. At this time, Fong Ti and I looked at Dong Yang and said, Huashan Capital, I've heard of it. My friend Lu Nan is one of your directors. You've done a great job in the past 2 years. Let's have a chat in the future. Dong Yang naturally knew about the Fong family and Fong Ti and I. Their family was famous in the capital industry in Guangdong and was one of the top 10 real estate developers in Guangdong. They had acquired a lot of land in Guangzhou and Shenzhen. Some time ago, it was said that they bought a piece of land in Qianhai and were going to invest in the construction of a super high-rise building. Fong Ti and I asked everyone to sit down and drink slowly. After hearing that they were juniors of the Zheng family, he did not mention anything about the shabby place or changing places. Of course, it depended on Qin Sheng's attitude. After all, these were all Qin Sheng's friends, and he could not be too presumptuous. After sitting down, they talked about some trivial things all about the relationship between them. After all, this circle was so big that it was not surprising that they knew each other. After a while, Qin Sheng asked, Brother Fong, you came so fast. You should be nearby, right? Oh, some time ago, the company bought a piece of land in Qianhai. Today, I came to sign a contract with the municipal government and went there to have a look. After finishing my work, I was going to have dinner with some friends. I happened to think that you were in Shenzhen today, so I gave you a call. I didn't expect you to be here, so I came over from there. Fong Ti and I explained with a smile. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, Oh, I see. Fong Ti and I drank a glass of wine with Qin Sheng and said, How is it? You've already arrived in Shenzhen. When will you make a move on Heyong? I've already spread the news, and my family has also made a few calls. Heyong's funds will be tight in a few days. Those few projects of his are all collaborations with the big shots in the Chaos Han Circle. He can only blame his bad luck. After saying that, Heyong remembered that Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang were still there. He looked at them and then looked at Qin Sheng, apparently saying that he was sorry for talking too much. However, Qin Sheng said, Brother Fong, you can say whatever you want. Zheng and Dong Yang are our brothers. Don't worry. If it was someone else, he might say that they were not outsiders, and it would be fine even if the news spread. However, Qin Sheng would not say that, because he was not worried that the news would spread. Even if the news spread, it would not be a big deal. He was here to settle scores with Heyong, and it was a fair and square one. At this time, Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang understood why Qin Sheng talked about Heyong just now. It turned out that he wanted to make trouble for Heyong. But what was the relationship between the Qin family and Heyong? Then tell me, when will we make a move? Since Qin Sheng said so, Fong Ti and I did not have to be afraid of anything. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, Don't rush. Wait until I come back from visiting an old leader in Guangzhou. Oh, old leader? Which old leader? Maybe I'll know him. Fong Ti and I asked with a smile. This time, Qin Sheng did not say it because it involved other things. Naturally, he could not talk about it in public. I see. Seeing that Qin Sheng did not say anything, Fong Ti and I did not ask further. At this time, Zheng Xinjian could not help but ask, Lao Qin, did Heyong offend your family? After hearing that, Fong Ti and I laughed out loud and said, Heyong offended the Qin family? Did he have the guts to offend them? Heyong is just a dog of the Qin clan. Who would have thought that this dog would not only not know how to repay kindness, but he would also bite the hand that fed him? If the master doesn't teach him a lesson, who else should he teach? Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang understood in an instant. They did not expect that Heyong, who was doing well in Shenzhen, was just a dog of the Qin family. It could be seen how powerful the Qin family was. No wonder Qin Sheng said that he would stay in Shenzhen for more than half a month. Qin Sheng did not want to talk about these things. He smiled and said, Let's drink. After Fong Ti and I drank 2 glasses, he said, I think you're almost done eating. How about we go somewhere else to continue drinking? I will take you to the club that I often go to. I promise that you will have a good time. Since Fong Ti and I said so, everyone naturally knew where it was. However, it was definitely not the kind of place that everyone could go. Maybe even Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang knew it. At this time, Zheng Xinjian and Dong Yang looked at Qin Sheng. Naturally, they would listen to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng hesitated for a moment and agreed. He had to give face to Fong Tianai. It was nothing more than socializing and drinking. He was used to such occasions before. Therefore, everyone went to the place that Fong Tianai mentioned. When Fong Tianai went there, he took the same car with Qin Sheng. He smiled and said that this place was not for ordinary people, even for rich people. It only received people who were famous in Shenzhen and only received people who were brought there by them. Other strangers would not be accepted. Of course, Qin Sheng knew what it meant. After they went there, it was really different. This place was really magnificent. The rich people in Shenzhen were really good at playing. No wonder they said that if you wanted to have fun, you should go south. Zhang Xinjian and Dong Yang had heard of this place, but they had not been there. However, if Zhang Xinjian really wanted to come, he would definitely come. It was just that he did not like to have fun so much. When they were brought into the box by two charming young women and saw the foreign wine on the table, Qin Sheng knew that they would definitely be in trouble tonight. Chapter 1032. Zhang Xinjian was relatively a decent person. He did not have too many hobbies. In this city, many big shots have fallen on the gambling table in Macau, and many big shots have fallen on women. Therefore, the old man of the Zhang family had set a few rules, which were to abstain from corruption, gambling, drugs, and sex. If one violated any of these rules, he would be expelled from the family and would never be recognized again. Naturally, the rule of abstaining from corruption was for the younger generation who were pursuing official careers. If one violated this rule, he would not go far. Even if he was lucky enough to go far, he would eventually lose his reputation. As for the remaining 3 rules, they were for everyone. Gambling and drugs were absolutely forbidden. No matter how high one's social status was, it would eventually lead to a dead end. On the other hand, the rule of abstaining from sex was relatively more relaxed. As long as one did not play with one's feelings or have an affair, it was understandable. Therefore, whether he was studying abroad or starting a business in China, Zhang Xinjian had a relatively strong self-control. Unless it was a business banquet or a gathering with friends, he might come to such occasions. Most of the time, his life was only about family and work. That was why he could establish a listed company at such a young age. Dong Yang often went to such places. After all, he was in the financial circle. The life of the rich was originally so luxurious and corrupt, because not all people were so noble. Didn't people earn money to enjoy themselves? Therefore, Dong Yang often went to high-end restaurants and private clubs. Except for a few places that he was not qualified to go, he had been to almost all the places that he could go. This place, which was only known by the top circle of Shenzhen, was one of the few places that he had not been to. This private club was very luxurious. The decoration alone was estimated to cost tens of millions. However, he had been to too many high-end places like this, and there was nothing amazing about it. After all, Shanshan Ruoshui was also at the same level. It was just different from here. There were many more beautiful women here. Fong Tianai seemed to be a regular here. And the general manager came out to receive him in person. Qin Sheng was not surprised that the general manager here was a beauty. After all, women were more at home in this kind of occasion. Almost all the people who came here were men, and men liked to deal with beautiful women the most. Although this general manager seemed to be in her 40s, she was still charming and had a better temperament. The middle-aged general manager didn't expect that Fong Tianai would bring a few young people with him this time. However, thinking that Fong Tianai's identity and the young people he brought with him must have a powerful background, she greeted them politely and took the initiative to hand out her business card. She didn't give anything away no matter what she said or did. Finally, after arranging everything, she took the initiative to leave and didn't steal the host's place. Fong Tianai said at this time, she used to be a hostess in Dongguan. She is an ambitious woman. She didn't want to be like that for the rest of her life. Later, she was lucky enough to meet a big shot in Dongguan. With the help of that big shot, she got to where she is today. She has great ability to sit in this position. She is better than many men in both shrewdness and means. Many customers who come here eventually become her friends. No matter men or women, as long as they have ambition, it is very terrible. The most terrible thing is that ability and ambition match. In this way, anyone can succeed, Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. He just looked at the business card in his hand. Tang Wanxiao, a very poetic name. Was it taken from the line in the poem, "The red leaves rustle in the evening, and a ladle of wine in the pavilion"? These were all Qin Sheng's guesses. If it was true, it was estimated that this Tang Wanxiao's family background should be good, and her parents should also be educated. Otherwise, it would be difficult for an ordinary family at her age to have such a name. Then he carefully thought about her later experience and current achievements. It seemed that he could understand. Fang Tianai pulled Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, "Why are you talking about this? Let's drink." "Brother Fang, we were just talking about drinking. Do you need to put on such a big show? Are you asking me to go out lying down?" Looking at the Hennessy XO on the table, Qin Sheng felt a headache. There were at least 20 bottles. Did he want to risk his life? Fang Tianai laughed and said, "Drink as much as you can. What's more, a few beautiful women will accompany us in a while. If we can't drink, let them drink. Since you came to Shenzhen, I have to treat you well. Don't let Lulu think that I neglected you. But there's one thing. Don't tell Lulu that I brought you here. Otherwise, Lulu will definitely settle accounts with me, her uncle." Qin Sheng was a little speechless. Fang Tianai did not act like an elder at all. It was completely like an exchange between brothers. The atmosphere of the Fang family was really strange. That night, Qin Sheng really drank too much. Among them, only Zheng Xingjian could not hold his liquor. He was already unconscious just after 9 o'clock. Dong Yang was obviously a master of drinking. He drank like a desperate man. As for Fang Tianai, there was no need to mention. Most of the time, he just took the initiative to drink with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng had to deal with 3 people, so it was easy to imagine Qin Sheng's ending. Even with the help of the beautiful woman beside him, he drank a lot. They had started earlier, so they finished earlier as well. After all, almost all of them were dying. Only Fang Tianai looked fine. When Qin Sheng walked out of here, he had already forgotten the appearance of the beauty beside him. She seemed to be a middle-level manager of a foreign company. This society was really interesting. Fang Tianai did not dare to instigate Qin Sheng to take the beautiful woman away. It should be known that Qin Sheng's fiancée was the goddess of the Song family. His grandfather's status was obvious. If the Song family knew that he took Qin Sheng out to drink and pick up girls, it would not be worth it. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had been waiting for Qin Sheng outside. When Qin Sheng and Hao Lei came out, Chang Baji and Hao Lei hurriedly supported him. Looking at the situation, they knew that Qin Sheng had been forced to drink a lot tonight. This was the first day he came to Shenzhen, and he was already unconscious. It was estimated that there would be more times in the future. Dong Yang sent Zheng Xingjian home. Naturally, Qin Sheng did not need to worry about Fang Tianai. After everyone left, Qin Sheng sat in the car for a long time before he let Chang Baji and Hao Lei go back to the hotel. He muttered, "Foreign wine is really King terrible. Next time, if you can, break down the door and drink white wine." Chang Baji and Hao Lei looked at each other and did not know whether to laugh or cry. They rarely saw Qin Sheng like this. However, Qin Sheng was used to drinking white wine or beer. It was true that he did not have many opportunities to drink foreign wine. Even if he did drink, he would drink single malt whiskey. Therefore, it was not a surprise that he had been knocked out tonight. After walking for about 10 minutes, Qin Sheng could not hold on anymore. He hurriedly asked Chang Baji to stop the car. When Chang Baji stopped the car by the roadside, Qin Sheng rushed out, sat on the roadside, and threw up. He did not eat anything tonight. At this moment, he almost threw up all of his food. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had to stand by and take care of him. They kept handing water to Qin Sheng to rinse his mouth and patting his back at the same time. They were used to such a situation. Qin Sheng would only wake up after he vomited. It would not take long for him to recover. If he did not vomit for a long time, they would be a little worried. Not knowing how long it had been, Qin Sheng finally finished vomiting. At this moment, he was also much more sober. He laughed and scolded. "Next time, I will not drink with Fang Tianai. He is really a wine jar. No wonder Fang Lu could drink so much." Did the Fong family make wine in their previous life? Hao Lei said with a smile. You should drink less in the future. Try not to drink if you can. If you can't, try to drink less. You have already reached this level. It is not like when we were young. Brothers can drink together. Moreover, even if you don't want to drink, few people will force you to drink. Qin Sheng did not refute Hao Lei. He drank some water and said helplessly, You are right. I have to be careful in the future. Otherwise, I will be disabled sooner or later. At this time, Song Ryu happened call. It was already 11 o'clock. Song Ryu was still awake. This did not seem to be her routine. After Qin Sheng answered the phone, he asked, It is so late. Why are you still awake? Song Ryu had already taken a shower and was lying on the bed. Qin Sheng did not call her when he arrived in Shenzhen today. Of course, Song Ryu was concerned about him. Of course, she was not checking on him. She was not interested in any of Qin Sheng's private life, as long as he did not challenge her bottom line. Song Ryu said calmly, I went to the teacher's house today, so I came back a little late. The teacher that Song Ryu mentioned was naturally that man. God knew how many tycoons wanted to build a relationship with this teacher. Unfortunately, after all, they did not have the chance. Song Ryu was different. That teacher really appreciated her. Therefore, Qin Sheng asked a little seriously, Is it about the transfer? Song Ryu said thoughtfully, Yes. In addition, there's one more thing. What is it? Qin Sheng frowned and asked. Song Ryu said calmly, The teacher said that if he has time, he would like to see you. This seemingly casual sentence made Qin Sheng absent-minded for a moment. For a moment, he did not respond. That man wanted to see him. What did it mean? Moreover, it did not seem to be the right time. Qin Sheng did not speak for a long time. Song Ryu asked, What's wrong with you? Qin Sheng said honestly, Nothing. I drank a little too much and feel a little uncomfortable. I'm sitting on the roadside to take a rest. However, he was still thinking about what Song Ryu had said just now. Song Ryu said with concern, Then go back and drink some soup or tea to sober up. Otherwise, it will be bad for your health. I'm going to sleep. I'll hang up now. Okay, got it. Good night, Qin Sheng said quietly. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng was completely lost in thought. He carefully thought about what Song Ryu had just said. To be honest, he admired that legendary man. When he had been in Fudan University, he had learned a lot about him, especially the words that he had said. One of the most amazing words was that if you wanted to influence the policy, you had to be the one who made the policy. Eventually, he became the one who made the policy. However, now that his idol suddenly wanted to see him, Qin Sheng was somewhat at a loss and seemed to be avoiding it. Just when Qin Sheng was thinking, Chang Baji suddenly looked into the distance and squinted. Qin Sheng, something seems wrong over there. What's wrong? Qin Sheng followed Chang Baji's gaze and found that there seemed to be a beautiful woman walking forward at a moderate pace on the roadside, not far away. Judging from her gestures, she should be talking on the phone. At this time, apart from them, there was only one car in front of them on this road. What was wrong? Chang Baji explained in a low voice. The car in front of us seems to be following that woman. Is there anything wrong? After careful observation, Qin Sheng found that it was true. A Mercedes-Benz in front of them was following that woman at a moderate pace, but kept a suitable distance. If one did not observe carefully, they would not be discovered. Obviously, that woman did not notice the existence of this car. Qin Sheng thought for a moment. At this time, there seemed to be no cars coming and going and no passers-by. If that car really had evil intentions, this woman would be in danger. Qin Sheng made a prompt decision. Follow them. Chapter 1033. Chapter 1029, let's talk about it. How did Chang Baji find out that something was wrong? It might have something to do with Chang Baji's vigilance. This place was a high-end villa area, backed by a mountain, without any business atmosphere. There were no cars or people around. If someone followed them and made a move here, it would definitely be a crisis for them. Therefore, when Hao Lei was taking care of Qin Sheng, Chang Baji had been vigilantly observing the surroundings in case of any accidents. When the woman appeared, Chang Baji saw her. At the same time, he also saw the car following her. At first, Changbaji did not take it seriously. However, when the car kept following the woman and kept moving forward at a constant speed of 100 meters, Changbaji felt that something was wrong. He kept staring at the car until they drove past the opposite side and then reported to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not know the identity of the other party, nor did he know the identity of the woman. However, in case of any mishap, he decided to follow them and see what they wanted to do. If they wanted to harm this woman, Qin Sheng would naturally stop them. This was not some hero saving the beauty. He just wanted to prevent accidents from happening. This was the way of the world. If everyone did not care about it, then when an accident befell you, no one would help you. Changbaji turned the car around and followed the car quickly. He didn't care about being discovered by the car, so he kept a distance of 20 meters from the car. If they wanted to hurt the woman, they could stop them quickly. Also, if they found out that they were afraid, they wouldn't dare to do anything to them. "Boss, there's a car following us." The driver of the Mercedes-Benz in front was obviously not an ordinary person. He was very vigilant and quickly found the car behind them. Then he said to a man in a suit and leather shoes behind him. The driver had a buzz cut and was very strong. He should be a retired soldier. Generally, there were more drivers like him. As for the man behind, he looked like he was in his 30s. His hair was well combed, and he was obviously a successful man. Qin Sheng didn't know what level he was at, but the Mercedes-Benz S-Series showed that he was very rich. The man behind squinted and looked back. He thought for a while and said, "Let's ignore them for now." The driver didn't say anything. He just kept the distance and followed the woman in the black dress closely. The two of them maintained a tacit understanding, one in front and one behind, neither of them disturbing the other. The woman in a dress by the roadside did not notice what was happening behind her. Perhaps it was because her attention was elsewhere. After all, she was on the phone. She seemed to be crying and kept wiping away her tears. About 10 minutes later, the woman walked to the entrance of a villa area. After hesitating for a moment, she went in directly. She should live here. When a man in the Mercedes-Benz saw the woman enter the area smoothly, he let out a long sigh of relief. At this time, the driver asked again, "Boss, what should we do? Do we go back directly, or?" The man was silent for a moment before he said in a low voice, "Let's move forward a little more and see what's going on behind us." The driver nodded and continued to move forward. He drove away from the entrance of the community, but he was still driving at the same speed. At this time, Changbaji, who was in the car behind, said in surprise, "Nothing happened. It seems to be a false alarm." Halle immediately said, "Maybe they found us, so they didn't do anything. Anyway, it's okay." When Changbaji passed by the entrance of the community, Qin Sheng asked him to stop for a few seconds, which led to what happened later. Qin Sheng rolled down the window and glanced at the name of the community. It seemed to be a villa area under the overseas Chinese town. Qin Sheng was very clear that the overseas Chinese town had a deep foundation in Guangdong. Since the woman was fine and went home safely, Qin Sheng didn't think much and said, "Let's go back to the hotel." "What about them?" Changbaji indicated that the car in front had not left yet. Qin Sheng thought it was indeed troublesome. Although nothing happened tonight, who knew what would happen in the future? He couldn't send someone to protect this woman, which would be asking for trouble. After all, this woman had nothing to do with him. Many tragedies happened in this world every day. How could Qin Sheng care about them all? However, he couldn't bear to do it. So he said, "Get someone to contact the property management tomorrow. Find that woman and remind her." This was the only thing Qin Sheng could do. If he did more, it would be out of his scope. In the car in front, the man in the back kept staring at the car behind. When the car behind stopped at the entrance of the community, his eyes were suddenly full of hostility. So when the car behind turned around, he ordered without hesitation, "Huzi, turn around and catch up with that car. Force it to stop." Why'd he do that? Because he felt danger. As long as someone hurt that woman, he would never let them go. The driver wasn't surprised that his boss would do this, because he knew what this woman meant to his boss. It wasn't the first time that he had followed this woman silently. Without this woman, his boss wouldn't be who he was today. Unfortunately, life couldn't give you the best of both worlds. Huzi turned around without hesitation, stepped on the accelerator, and directly caught up. At this time, Qin Sheng had already closed his eyes and rested for a while. After all, he had drunk so much tonight and was a little sleepy. When they arrived at the hotel, Chong Baji and the others would wake him up. When the car caught up with them just now, Chong Baji did not notice it at all. After all, it was so far away and it was nighttime. He could not see the license plate of the car behind it all. Moreover, the car was going in another direction. It was not until the car suddenly overtook them sideways and stopped in front of them without hesitation that Chong Baji realized something was wrong. At this time, Chong Baji had no time to react. He could only step on the brake and turn to the right at the same time in case of crashing into the car. It never occurred to him that the car suddenly rushed to them. Who on earth were these people? Qin Sheng was also awakened by the sudden change. He subconsciously held the seat in front of him and said, "Lao Chong, what's going on?" Chong Baji frowned and said, "We're in trouble." At this time, they saw two men get out of the car that stopped next to them and head straight for them. Chong Baji was sure that this car was the one from before. So these two men were also the two men who followed the woman in front of them. Hao Lei was worried about some danger. So he said, "Qin Sheng, you stay in the car. I'll get off with Lao Chong." After that, he and Chong Baji directly got off the car. Looking at the aggressive people, they did not dare to be careless. Who knew where they came from? Looking at the man with a buzz cut, they knew that he was not an ordinary person. Obviously, his figure could only be maintained by regular exercise. The man in a suit and leather shoes beside him was also full of killing intent. Huzi asked harshly, "Who are you?" Chong Baji asked in reply, "Who are you?" Huzi continued to ask, "Why you care who we are and why we are following us?" Chong Baji sneered and said, "It's you who don't want to stop us, not us who don't want to stop you. I should be the one asking you this question." Huzi was a little annoyed in an instant. "Since you don't want to tell the truth, then I'll make you tell the truth." He scolded, "Damn it, you're so stubborn." After that, Huzi directly rushed up and attacked Chong Baji with his fist without hesitation. Chong Baji did not expect that the man would suddenly attack him. Since he had already attacked, there was no need for him to be polite at all. Without any hesitation, he directly fought back and grabbed the man's arm. Huzi also did not expect that this man would attack him. It seemed that he had some martial arts skills. Then he hit the man's waist with his knee. Chong Baji pulled Huzi's arm and directly blocked his knee. Then he conveniently hit Huzi's shoulder with his elbow. On the other side, Hao Lei did not expect that the man would suddenly attack him. In that case, he had no choice but to fight back. So at this time, Hao Lei also rushed to the man opposite him. The man's expression changed slightly, but he did not retreat. Instead, he faced Hao Lei. He thought that he had a lot of exercise in his daily life, and he was also suitable for boxing and so on. However, he was wrong. The man in front of him was not an ordinary person. He was a retired soldier in the Special Forces, and he was much more powerful than the driver named Huzi. On the other side, Chong Baji had already tested Huzi's strength at this time. At this time, he did not hide his strength anymore. When Huzi attacked again, Chong Baji suddenly kicked Huzi's thigh, forcing Huzi to kneel on one knee. Then he immediately grabbed Huzi's arm and punched Huzi's back. He did not give Huzi any chance to fight back at all. Huzi did not have the strength to fight back at all. Chong Baji immediately moved sideways and directly twisted Huzi's arm behind his back. Huzi completely lost the ability to fight back, and he was controlled by Chong Baji in an instant. On the other side, Hao Lei's situation was simpler than Chong Baji's. He had thought that the man in front of him was very powerful, but it did not occur to him that this man only knew some boxing routines. He had always been close to him, and more of a defensive strategy. Therefore, Hao Lei had already beaten the man to the ground within a few moves. He pressed down on the man, leaving him no chance to move. In the car, after Qin Sheng was sure that Chong Baji and Hao Lei had dealt with the man, he slowly got out of the car. He had seen everything that had happened outside, just now. He really wanted to know who the man was. But he was sure that the man did not come for him. Maybe it was just a temporary idea. If the man had come for him, he would not have used such ordinary kung fu. Even if he was drunk now, it was more than enough to deal with these two men. After Qin Sheng got out of the car, He slowly walked in front of the man, controlled by Hao Lei. Of course, he knew that this man was the real boss. Qin Sheng's face was cold as he asked, "Who are you? Who are you?" The man shouted somewhat angrily, as if he wanted to attract the attention of passers-by. Qin Sheng found it funny and said, "It was you who didn't stop us. Then why didn't you stop us? It was you who followed us just now. Do you want to harm her? Did her husband offend you? Or does her husband owe you money? If you dare to harm her, I definitely won't let you off." The man yelled through gritted teeth. Qin Sheng was a little dizzy, so it was a little confusing, but he more or less understood what the man meant. It turned out that the man forced them to stop because he was afraid that they would harm the woman. But it was these people who followed the woman. They saw these people following the woman, so they secretly protected the woman. Qin Sheng had no choice but to ask, "First of all, we don't know that woman. We just saw you following her, so we were worried that you would harm her. So we followed you. Do you understand now?" After listening to what Qin Sheng said, the man felt a little strange. Was it really like this? Could it be a misunderstanding? He was a little skeptical. Seeing that the man was lost in thought, Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Now it's your turn. Why did you follow that woman? What's your relationship with her?" What Qin Sheng could be sure of was that this man did not want to harm that woman. Otherwise, he would not have said those words just now. It was obvious that he wanted to protect that woman. He also said that if they dared to harm that woman, he would definitely not spare them. Even if Qin Sheng was stupid, he could understand what it meant. The man raised his head and stared at Qin Sheng. After hesitating for a long time, he finally said slowly, "She is my ex-girlfriend." Ex-girlfriend? Damn, what the hell was this? Qin Sheng did not expect that it would be like this. It seemed that it was a false alarm tonight. It seemed that this was a misunderstanding. Qin Sheng took a few steps back and said, "Lao Chong, it's a misunderstanding. Let them go." Chang Baji and Hao Lei looked at each other and let go of the two men almost at the same time. Following that, they immediately stood on both sides of Qin Sheng and formed a triangular formation. If the two men still tried to harm Qin Sheng, they would definitely take action immediately. After the driver got up, he still wanted to retaliate, but was directly stopped by the man. "Who's he?" A few minutes later, Qin Sheng and the others figured out what was going on. It turned out that the woman was really this man's ex-girlfriend. Although it was only the man and the driver who said it, Qin Sheng and the others still had the basic judgment. Why did this happen tonight? Because this man knew that his ex-girlfriend lived here, but they had never contacted each other. But he often drove here to stay for a while, sometimes for half an hour, sometimes for 1 or 2 hours. Sometimes he would see his ex-girlfriend, but most of the time he would not see her. Even if he saw her, he would not say hello, because he did not want to disturb her life, but he had been quietly watching her life. At this time, the man asked, "Do you have a cigarette?" Qin Sheng subconsciously took out a cigarette from his pocket and handed it to the man. The man took the cigarette and lighter from Qin Sheng. After lighting the cigarette, he took a deep breath and said, "Do you want to hear the story between me and her?" At this time, Qin Sheng was completely sober. Since it was so coincidental, it could be considered fate. He smiled and said, "Then tell me." Chapter 1034. Begging for monthly tickets, subscriptions, and collections. Everyone, please support me. That night, the plot was full of twists and turns. Obviously, both sides had misunderstood each other. However, the ending was good after all. It did not cause a bigger misunderstanding. Maybe it was fate. Otherwise, how could there be such an intersection? Qin Sheng did not want to vomit, but he vomited on this road. That woman happened to live here and quarreled with her husband tonight. And this man happened to come to see this woman today. He had not come to see this woman for more than half a month. He just came back from a business trip. Maybe it was because of the pressure outside, or maybe he had suffered some grievances. He wanted to come here to stay for a while, because only here could he put down all his emotions. Qin Sheng and this man did not talk about life and the past by the road. After all, it was not very convenient here. It was also because of these episodes that the man was willing to tell these stories. More importantly, it was because Qin Sheng was not a bad person. Otherwise, he would not think that they were bad people and protect his ex-girlfriend. In the end, the man took the initiative to invite Qin Sheng to eat supper. Qin Sheng did not refuse. He smiled and asked where the good casserole porridge was. It could help him sober up. The man smiled and said, "Then you have found the right person. Every time I drink too much, I will go to the food stall to eat casserole porridge at night. I could drink a big pot by myself." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Then what are we talking about? You can lead the way." After getting in the car, Qin Sheng asked Chang Baji to follow the man's car. Hao Lei was a little worried and said, "Qin Sheng, it's so late. Let's go back to the hotel. Moreover, we don't know them. It's better to be careful. After all, we have just arrived in Shenzhen and are not familiar with the people in the place. Who knows what accidents might happen?" I still believe him. Moreover, if he really wants to take action against me, he does not need to send two people like this, right? Moreover, every time he talked about his ex-girlfriend, there was light in his eyes, just like when you talked about Hanbing. Maybe this is love. We live in this world, and we meet countless people of all kinds every day. How can we be in danger everywhere? Qin Sheng said with a smile. You're right. Since Qin Sheng had made up his mind, Hao Lei did not say anything else. As for Chang Baji, it did not matter. Moreover, they were at a food stall, so there should be no danger. Half an hour later, the man brought them to the food stall where they often ate supper. This row was almost all seafood food stalls. After all, the South did not lack seafood, and casserole porridge was also the standard for supper. The man seemed to be very familiar with the boss. After greeting him, he ordered the dishes, which were all the specialties of this restaurant. Of course, he did not forget to order 2 servings of xiaogu porridge and some light dishes. After all, Qin Sheng said that he wanted to sober up. The man also smelled the strong smell of alcohol on Qin Sheng's body. It was not until then that Qin Sheng found out that the man's name was Chun Yinping, which was quite a nice name. He did not tell Qin Sheng exactly what he did. He only said that he ran a small business in Shenzhen. The man with the crew cut was his driver, Hu Zi. He used to be a scout, so he had some skills. Qin Sheng did not ask anything. After all, he could drive a Mercedes-Benz with a driver, so he must be rich. However, in Shenzhen, a city full of millionaires and billionaires, it was understandable for a man to say that he ran a small business. As for Qin Sheng, he only introduced himself as Qin Sheng and did not say anything else. He also introduced Chang Baji and Hao Lei, saying that they were his friends. However, Chun Yinping guessed that these 2 so-called friends were probably bodyguards. Otherwise, with their skills, even Hu Zi was not a match for them. Moreover, their car was the latest Porsche Cayenne S. Maybe they had a special identity, so they were not willing to say much. Since they met by chance, it was fate that they could sit and eat together, so Chun Yinping did not ask much. You're really good at martial arts. I'm not a match for you at all. Now my shoulder and back are still hurting. Can you be gentler next time? Hu Zi was a forthright northerner, so he sat down and said. Chang Baji said casually, I've practiced with experts for a few years. Your skills are just ordinary grappling skills. You can deal with ordinary people, but it's normal for you to be a match for martial artists like us. I've already been merciful. If you were a tough guy, you might be lying in a hospital now. After hearing this, Hu Zi took a deep breath and thought, oh my God, you're so good at martial arts. Fortunately, I was not too impulsive just now. At this time, Hao Lei also happened to look at Chun Yinping. Chun Yinping shook his head and smiled. Needless to say, I've only practiced boxing in the gym. Those coaches are all superficial. It's normal for me to not be a match for you. Hao Lei smiled awkwardly and did not say anything. He did not even mention that he was a retired Special Forces soldier. Otherwise, they would be shocked again. Chun Yinping looked at Qin Sheng and asked in a low voice, Do you want to drink more? Since this man wanted to tell his story, if there was no wine, it would probably be less interesting. However, he knew that Qin Sheng had drunk a lot before, so he just asked politely. Qin Sheng hesitated for a while and said, I'll drink less beer. I drank too much tonight. Hearing that Qin Sheng could drink a little, Chun Yinping was obviously very happy. He admired this man, who was a few years younger than him, even more. At such a young age, he had such a temperament, steady and experienced, and had the style of a general. He should not be simple. When all the dishes and wine were served, Qin Sheng took the initiative to pour a glass of wine for Chen Yinping and said, "Now can you tell your story?" After drinking the wine, Chen Yinping filled up his glass again. However, he did not drink this time. Instead, he lit a cigarette. When the smoke rose, Chen Yinping's eyes became more and more experienced. He said slowly, "Actually, there's no story. It's similar to the story of most couples. Moreover, too many stories like this happen every day in this world. Who cares about whose feelings?" Although Chen Yinping said so, he finally said, "Neither of us are from Shenzhen. She is from Jiangsu, and I am from Hubei. We both studied at Huazhong Science and Technology University, but we were not in the same class. We met by chance in a basketball game. To be honest, in the words of the young people, I was a little fresh meat at that time. I was good at basketball. Why couldn't I get a girl? She was the cheerleader of our opponent's class. I saw her the moment I entered the court. It was melodramatic love at first sight. So in order to get her attention in the game, I broke through and scored crazily. I almost thought I was an NBA player. After the game, I took the initiative to run to her and ask for her contact information. Maybe I succeeded in getting her attention. She was a little embarrassed and finally gave me her number. That's how we got to know each other." At this time, Qin Sheng said half-jokingly, "Whether in college or in high school, dating is relatively simple. It seems that as long as you study well, play basketball well, or play the guitar well, as long as you have a skill, you can find a girlfriend. How can it be so easy now?" Later, I tried my best to chase her. It didn't take long for us to be together. For a college student, having love is like having the whole world. In this way, we spent 4 years in college. Although there were always some stumbles in the middle, the ending was still beautiful. After graduating from college, I wanted to come to Shenzhen to make a living. At that time, Shenzhen was the most suitable place for a young man like me who wanted to work hard. Many of my classmates were developing their careers in Shenzhen. However, my family wanted me to stay in Wuhan, while her family wanted her to go back to work. Because of this, we quarreled many times. Maybe it was the motivation of love. In the end, she fell out with her family and came to Shenzhen with me resolutely. Chen Yinping continued. Obviously, this was a beautiful love story. The male and female protagonists broke through the shackles of love and stuck to it. If it was still beautiful, there would be no story like this. Qin Sheng didn't disturb Chen Yinping. He let him continue. My family was very poor. I was born in a rural area in Hubei. Her family was not bad. Her parents ran a small business. After we arrived in Shenzhen, we both found jobs. Although the ideal was beautiful, the reality was cruel. I changed several jobs, but still didn't achieve anything. During this period, I was also cheated by others twice. As time went by, our quarrels became more and more intense. Her family was under a lot of pressure. They wanted her to go back and develop her career. But I always told her to trust me. We lived in a basement and went hungry. I wanted to give her a better life, but God always teased me. Her parents finally compromised. They said that as long as we bought a house in Shenzhen, they would agree to our marriage. But I was a child from a rural area. I had 2 younger brothers and sisters at home. How could I have that kind of ability? Sometimes, it seemed that all love was very fragile in the face of reality. We quarreled all the time and compromised all the time. Even so, we didn't give up on each other. She did a lot for me, but I couldn't repay her. She said that it was okay if we didn't buy a house. She asked me to go to Jiangsu to meet her parents. I told her parents that I could give her a happy future. But at that time, I was at the lowest point of my life. I didn't have the confidence to meet her parents. I always thought that I would only dare to meet her parents if I had some achievements. At the same time, I also said that if you really trusted me, we could get married first. I would definitely give you a future. But we couldn't compromise. The contradiction became deeper and deeper. Sometimes we didn't speak for a long time in a Cold War, but we still loved each other. Chen Yinping's cigarette was about to burn out, but he only took a puff. In the end, the last straw that crushed our love came. She suddenly told me that she was pregnant. Although I wasn't ready, I wanted to give birth to the child. After all, it was my child, but she didn't want it. It was true that we didn't have the ability to raise a child at that time. Moreover, we weren't married yet. There were so many factors in our families. So, she secretly aborted the child. When I found out, it was already too late. I finally couldn't bear it anymore and completely exploded. I broke up with her when she was at her weakest. She just smiled and said okay. We broke up just like that. The story is almost over here. Chen Yinping put out the cigarette, and sighed with emotion. Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. There were so many lovers in the world. Hao Lei was a little angry. Then you didn't try to redeem her. Why not? When I calmed down, I was very regretful. After all, she aborted the child because of me. But when I wanted to find her and ask her to stay, I couldn't find her anymore. I looked for her for a long time. In the end, I gave up. It was also because I started a new business at that time. I almost put all my energy into work, Chen Yinping said with some guilt. Qin Sheng squinted and asked, "Then how did you get in touch with her again?" When I heard about her again, it was already 2 years later. A college classmate told me, and then I knew that she had been in Shenzhen all along. But at that time, she was going to get married. When I heard the news, I almost went crazy. I went to find her impulsively. But when I saw that she was so happy and that the man was so good to her, I gave up. What right do I have? Chen Yinping continued, and the smile on his face became more and more painful. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly. What about now? Later, I started a successful business, and my life was a little better. As for her, she lived a happy life and gave birth to a pair of children. I only went to see her occasionally, but I never disturbed her life because I was not qualified to see her. During this time, her husband's business was in trouble, so I wanted to see her after I came back from a business trip. That's how I met you. Chen Yinping lit up another cigarette. This time, he took 2 deep breaths. Qin Sheng took a sip of wine and asked, "Do you still love her?" "I love her. I love her very much. I'm willing to use everything I have now to exchange for her." When Chen Yinping said this, his eyes were already wet. He thought of all the beautiful things that had happened in the past, and all he could think of were those beautiful things and what she had done for him. It seemed that he would never be able to meet such a person again. She was so suitable for him, like another you in this world, but he had missed out on her. Qin Sheng laughed at himself. "Do you regret it?" "Yes." Chen Yinping smiled bitterly. Qin Sheng continued, "Do you regret it?" "How can I not regret it?" Chen Yinping took a deep breath and said, "Have you heard that song? Li Ronghao's Young and Promising is my favorite song." Before Qin Sheng could answer, Chen Yinping had already hummed subconsciously. He said, "If I were young and promising and didn't feel inferior and knew what was precious, I would feel guilty for not giving you those sweet dreams. If I were young and promising, I wouldn't let you suffer for me. At the wedding, drink a few more cups, and with your current." Chen Yinping sang, and he did not know when his face was already covered with tears. In the end, he completely broke down. It seemed that he would not experience that kind of heartache for a second time in his life. He could only lie on the table and cry unscrupulously. In the middle of the night, under this open-air food stall, a man was crying hysterically, venting all the grievances he had suffered for so many years. Even though he was successful in his career, he had lost the most beloved thing. Some might understand, some might not. Chapter 1035. There were some regrets in life, and they would eventually become regrets. If you missed it, you would really miss it. When you were young, you would think that the person in front of you was a white-haired person. When you were old, you would realize how ridiculous it was. Sometimes, love was so cheap, and sometimes, love was so luxurious. Only by cherishing it could it last forever. Those beautiful memories, those unforgettable people and things, would eventually be sealed in the depths of one's memory, just like an old bottle of wine, waiting until the dead of night to be tasted again. The years would go with the wind. There was only a memorial, nothing else to ask for. After all, there were no ifs in life, only one chance to make a choice. In Beijing, Qin Sheng had seen the man drinking beer alone in the heavy rain, as if his life was just like that. How miserable could it be? He faced it calmly and accepted it gladly, but he did not believe that this was his fate. As long as he was alive, there would be a chance to change his fate, So he firmly believed that the future must be beautiful. In Shenzhen, Qin Sheng met this man who cried hysterically while singing. Although he had already made a name for himself, he had lost the most beloved thing in his life. He had once been able to obtain happiness easily, but now he could not exchange it for everything he had. It was sad, lamentable, and pitiful. However, he still loved her deeply, because he would never be able to meet her like this again. In this world, there were all kinds of sad and joyful stories of separation and reunion every day. Behind every smiling face, there might be infinite sorrow. Everyone you met could be the person that others missed day and night. You would never know what others had experienced, and you would never know how to comfort them, because you might not even be able to handle your own life well. At this moment, Qin Sheng was like this. He did not know how to comfort Qin Yinping, as if he would only feel better if he cried like this. Look at this man in his suit and leather shoes. How pathetic he looked at this moment. But many people here might understand. But how many men had not cried in the middle of the night? Only when one had truly experienced life would he know what it was like to be crushed by life. Qin Sheng was not qualified to comfort Qin Yinping, because in the face of love, he could not even handle his own affairs. He suddenly felt a little afraid. If one day Su Qin married someone else, if one day Lin Su chose someone else, what would happen to him? Maybe he would be even more pathetic than now. Let's go. It's time for us to go, Qin Sheng said to Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Hao Lei glanced at Chen Yinping, who was lying on the table, not knowing how to deal with him. Obviously, he was still a little worried. Qin Sheng said casually, "A man like him will adjust very quickly. When he wakes up tomorrow, he will still be the glamorous Chen Yinping." Chang Baji did not say anything. He just pulled Hao Lei and left. Qin Sheng and the others left just like that. This was originally just a chance meeting. When Qin Yinping got up, Qin Sheng and the others had already left. He wiped away his tears and quickly adjusted his state of mind. He did not ask anything. Just like what Qin Sheng had said, they had just met by chance. He was already very grateful that Qin Sheng could finish listening to his story. If they met again next time, he would still treat Qin Sheng to a drink, but he would not deliberately get to know Qin Sheng. On the way back, the music radio in Shenzhen was playing a song that fit the occasion. They also happened to hear the line, "This kind of story happens in this city every year, and this kind of story ends and disappears in the wind every year. This is a story that belongs to Shenzhen, and it is only one of thousands of stories." Qin Sheng could not help but say this sentence. Hao Lei said thoughtfully, "Do you need me to check on him tomorrow?" "Why do I want to check on him? If we can meet again, it is fate," Qin Sheng said casually. In the morning, when Qin Sheng and the others had breakfast, Fu Rong and He Wei had already arrived at Qin Sheng's suite. He Wei said impatiently, "Lao Qin, you arrived in Shenzhen yesterday. Why didn't you see us? We waited for you for half the night. Did you go out to fool around?" Qin Sheng was a little amused. He liked the playful He Wei more and more. It seemed that this way of getting along was more comfortable, because this was the way of getting along with friends. It seemed that the way of getting along with friends who cared too much about his identity would always make people feel distant. For example, Qin Sheng had known Yujbak for so long, but they were always too respectful to him, which made it difficult for Qin Sheng to get close to them. "If you want to fool around, I will take you there at night," Qin Sheng said with a smile. He Wei laughed and said, "Really? Don't lie to me. I know there are many fun places in Shenzhen." At this time, before Qin Sheng could say anything, Fu Rong said directly, "He Wei, if you say another word, I will find a way to make you shut up." He Wei was really afraid of Fu Rong, who would fight with him if he did not agree with him. He could not beat Fu Rong, so he could only shut up obediently. Let's get down to business. What have you learned from following He Yong these 2 days? Qin Sheng asked after making a cup of coffee and sitting down. He Wei said seriously, "He Yong has been meeting guests these days, and he also went out to visit a lot of people. We can find out the background of these people. Some of them are his friends who are working with him. It seems that other than problems with their projects, some of them are big shots from banks and big groups. We guess that He Yong must have encountered some financial problems, so he's trying to solve the problem. After hearing this news, Qin Sheng knew that Fong Tianai did not lie to him yesterday, and the Fong family did not take this matter lightly. Obviously, they used their connections to spread the news in Chaos Han Circle. So Hyung's financial problems were indeed a little urgent. Who asked Hyung to take advantage of the Qin family's identity in the past few years? And this was also the reason why the Qin family had to check the accounts. He also saw two women. They should be his mistresses. We have already found out their addresses. If you want to start from this aspect, you can leave it to me, He Wei said, not taking it seriously. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, not yet. This time, we are not playing tricks. It is a real fight, so don't even think about using the handsome man trick. He Wei smiled sheepishly and did not say anything. Qin Sheng looked at Hao Lei and asked, has the team from the Beijing company arrived? Yes, they have arrived, and they have also informed the Shenzhen company, but there is no response from them. However, the team from the Beijing company will enter the Shenzhen company this morning to start checking the accounts, but there should be a lot of resistance, Hao Lei said, squinting his eyes. Qin Sheng sneered. No resistance is abnormal. Then what should we do? Hao Lei frowned and asked. Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. This company is still the Qin family's, not Hyung's. How can he stop us? This was the truth. No matter what, the Qin family was the real owner. They were all protected by the law. How could Hyung stop them? Checking the accounts was like taking drastic measures. Cutting off Hyung's capital flow was the key. He could not stop Hyung from taking care of him. Qin Sheng did not believe that Hyung would not admit defeat. At this time, Fu Rong asked again, then what should we do? What Fu Rong meant was to ask what she and He Wei were going to do, continue to follow Hyung, or did they have other arrangements? Qin Sheng looked at Chang Baji and asked, Lao Chang, have you sent Uncle Gongsuan's information? Chang Baji answered honestly, I have sent it to my phone. Qin Sheng turned to look at Fu Rong and said, you don't need to follow Hyung anymore. I will give you a set of information later. There are a few key names in the information. You go and keep an eye on them. If there is not enough manpower, I will send more people to you. Fu Rong and He Wei nodded at the same time. They were only here to help Qin Sheng this time. They would do whatever Qin Sheng asked them to do. They would not make their own decisions. What are our plans today? Hao Lei asked doubtfully. Qin Sheng did not hesitate. He sneered. We will go to the company in Shenzhen later. I want to see who dares to stop us, who can stop us. There were a few big luxury housing areas in Shenzhen, one of which was currently the most popular, Shenzhen Bay, because it was developed in recent years. It was also a luxury housing area with the most advanced facilities. The most famous was naturally Shenzhen Bay No. 1. There were other luxury housing areas. Don't enter the Xiaomi Lake Luxury Housing Area, the Silver Lake Luxury Housing Area. The most famous luxury housing area was in the overseas Chinese town. The place Qin Sheng passed by last night was the luxury housing area in the overseas Chinese town, which is why the roadside there was so quiet at night. And Hyung lived here. The villa he lived in was worth 200 million renminbi. It could be seen how much Hyung had earned these years by relying on the Qin family. How much did he take advantage of the Qin family? However, Hyung had been in trouble these days. He was supposed to visit a big boss of a financial group in Guangzhou today, who did not expect that the other party would cancel the meeting directly. He was so angry that he threw a tantrum in the living room, directly smashing his favorite tea set. Everyone in the villa was somewhat silent. They had not seen Hyung so angry for a long time. The Qin family is King forcing me into a dead end. Hyung scolded loudly. Hyung's confidant shook his head and sighed bitterly. Brother, now is not the time to talk about this. Our few projects have been stopped. If we still can't find a solution, the capital chain will be broken. By then, even if the Qin family does not find trouble with us, we will be finished. Did you find out who on earth has such great power to persuade those Chaos Han bastards to stop cooperating with us? Although Hyung was very angry, he forced himself to calm down. If Qin Chang'an was not in trouble, Hyung believed that the Qin family had this ability, but now that Qin Chang'an was in jail, the Qin family did not have this ability at all. Hyung's confidant replied, I found out. I heard that it was the Fong family who released the news. Whoever continues to cooperate with us will go against the Fong family. They're a big family from Chaos Han. There are not many people in Chaos Han who are willing to offend the Fong family. They all said that we will talk about it later. The Fong family? What is the relationship between the Fong family and the Qin family? Hyung was a little confused. Hyung's confidant had no idea. He could only shake his head and said, "We also have no idea. Maybe it has nothing to do with the Qin family. Did we offend the Fong family?" Hyung did not think so. He thought that it must be the Qin family, because he already knew that the young master of the Qin family had arrived in Shenzhen. At this time, Hyung's phone suddenly rang. It turned out to be a call from the company's financial director, who told him that the team of the company in Beijing had already arrived, and now they were going to start to check the accounts. What should he do? Hyung flew into a rage again. Chapter 1036. Hyung paid more attention to the Qin family's affairs than anyone else. Otherwise, how could he dare to declare himself king? After staying in Shenzhen for a long time and seeing more big shots, Hyung naturally became more ambitious. Who didn't want to earn more money, become more and more powerful, and reach a higher level? Since Hyung took charge of the Qin family's affairs in Guangdong, he had earned a lot of money. In the beginning, Hyung was not so greedy, but after a long time, how could he not want to make more money? Therefore, he began to use the Qin family's connections to make money for himself. However, Qin Chang'an turned a blind eye to it. After all, these senior members had followed him for many years. As long as the Qin family was responsible for the Qin family's affairs, Qin Chang'an would not interfere with their own affairs. Moreover, Qin Chang'an was loyal to the Chang and branch, which had a complete system, so Hyung and the others could not interfere with it. Sometimes, Qin Chang'an would make use of the Chang and branch to ask them to do things for the Qin family, and Hyung could make money from it. After Qin Chang'an's accident, Hyung realized that he was in danger. He knew very well that Qin Sheng would definitely take action against the senior members after he took over the Qin family. After all, a new emperor would have his own ministers. They had too much power and might not take Hyung seriously. Therefore, he did not want to be a mere figurehead and be kicked out. Secondly, if something happened to the Qin family, the business empire that he had worked so hard to build over these years would probably collapse. Therefore, Hyung had to start to save himself and find a stable backer. At this time, the appearance of the sixth uncle and elder Long gave Hyung the courage to fight against the Qin family. Moreover, the Qin family was also in danger and had no ability to deal with him. Therefore, when Qin Sheng sent people to Shenzhen, Hyung dared to target him. He wanted to let Qin Sheng know that Hyung, was not so easy to be bullied. However, no one had expected that the situation of the Qin family would suddenly take a turn for the better. First, Qin Sheng got engaged to the woman from the Song family. It was said that the engagement was very grand. This news shocked many people and spread to Shenzhen very quickly. Almost everyone thought that the Qin family was going to be safe. At that time, Hyung was a little flustered because he had completely stood on the opposite side of the Qin family. The better the situation of the Qin family was, the worse his ending would be. If he waited until Qin Chang'an came out, then he could almost kill himself to thank the Qin family. Because he knew Qin Chang'an's means, with Qin Chang'an's ability, it would be easy for him to kill him. At that time, many people even said that if the Qin family was fine, Hyung would have a better and better life in Shenzhen. Only Hyung knew his own difficulties. Then, the news that shocked everyone again was that the Qin family actually sold the shares of the Chang and group to someone else. As for who they sold the shares to, Hyung still did not know. But what happened next completely overwhelmed Hyung. That was the sixth uncle and the Qin family had reconciled, and they would not continue to support him. Hyung, who had thought that he had found a backer, was completely isolated and helpless. After the Qin family sold the shares of the Chang and group, they naturally had to integrate the Qin family's own industry. It was only a matter of time before they took action against him. The sixth uncle no longer supported him, so he completely lost the strength to fight against the Qin family. It seemed that he could only surrender without putting up a fight. The Qin family did not let him down. When Hyung still thought that he was lucky, the Qin family had already taken action. When the few tycoons who had cooperated with him in Chaos Han stopped cooperating with him, Hyung suspected that it might be the Qin family who took action behind the scenes. When Qin Sheng came to Shenzhen in person, Hyung did not have any doubts anymore. However, now it was clear that it was the Fong family who exerted pressure on Chaos Han capital. It seemed that the Fong family had nothing to do with the Qin family, which Hyung was very clear about. But if it was not the Fong family, how could the Qin family have so much power to influence Chaos Han capital? Brother, I heard that the second son of the Fong family, Fong Tianai, arrived in Shenzhen yesterday. He will stay in Shenzhen these days. Shall we meet him? Hyung's confidant said in a deep voice. He was Hyung's incompetent advisor and was also responsible for handling all kinds of things for Hyung. He always had many ideas, and naturally, he did not want to see Hyung fall. Hyung frowned and said, I know he is in Shenzhen, but I am afraid that he will not meet me. It is better for me to go to Guangzhou directly and meet the old master of the Fong family. His words are more useful than the Fong family's. If Fong Tianai is not willing to meet you, even if you go to Guangzhou, the old master of the Fong family will definitely not meet you. How about trying first? The confidant suggested. At this time, Hyung had no other way. He said helplessly, then let's try. Hyung's confidant was called Duan Kai, a top student who had graduated from Jinan University. He had worked in the Central Enterprises and the world's top 500 companies before. Later, he moved to a private enterprise and became a senior manager. However, this enterprise collapsed in the end, and it was Hyung, or rather, the Qin family behind Hyung. During that time, Duan Kai did not make Hyung suffer. In the end, Hyung felt that Duan Kai was not only capable in the management of the company, but also capable in handling other things. Duan Kai was now 40 years old, and his hometown was in Chaos Han. He could cooperate with Chaos Han capital partly because of Duan Kai, but more because of Hyung's strength and the background of the Qin family. Duan Kai already knew about the company. He frowned and said, What about the company? The team of the Qin family has already arrived at the company. If they really want to check the accounts, many things may be exposed. At that time, the situation will be very worrying. How can I not know about this? So call them later. No matter what, stop them. These years, they have been greedy. It's time for them to do something. Otherwise, they don't need the Qin family to deal with them. I will deal with them myself. Hyung snorted coldly. Duan Kai said quietly, I know what to do. After Duan Kai left, Hyung did not stay at home. His wife just came back from sending their child to school. It seemed that she had gone shopping. Seeing this woman, Hyung was a little angry. She was not as considerate as the two women outside. They were all spending his money, but they let him spend it to his heart's content. Honey, why haven't you gone out yet? Aren't you going to Guangzhou today? Although Hyung's wife was somewhat beautiful, she was old and could not be compared with those young and beautiful girls. Moreover, she had been with Hyung for so many years, and she had long been tired of him. Hyung did not care about her. He was thinking about whether he should go to see the leader or not. At this time, it was time for him to solve the problem. Otherwise, if he fell down, no one would survive. At this time, Hyung's wife casually swayed in front of Hyung and said, Honey, do you think the dress I bought today looks good? Hearing this, Hyung was instantly furious. Your husband is going to be F*** finished, and you still want to see if your dress looks good. So Hyung directly grabbed the dress and tried to tear it. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not tear it. He had to throw it on the ground and step on it. At the same time, he scolded loudly, Yes, I will let you see. I'm going to be F** finished, and you still want me to be F** finished? Looking at your dress, I know you are a spendthrift. If your father had not helped me in the past, I would have F** divorced you. Hyung's wife did not expect that this man, whom she was very familiar with, would suddenly be so angry. Usually, he was very gentle to her. What was wrong with him today? She instantly burst into tears. If it were in normal times, Hyung would definitely coax her. However, today, Hyung was angry, so he directly left and did not even look at her. During this period, he did not plan to come back. It was better to live with his mistress. They can directly call the headquarters in Beijing to inquire. If you maliciously stop us again, we will call the police. The security guards did not understand this, so they directly refused. We don't care about this. Anyway, you can't go in. Just when Gu Jianxin was about to get angry, Qin Sheng happened to call at this time and asked if Gu Jianxin had entered the company. Gu Jianxin said directly, "Chairman Qin, they are blocking us and not letting us go in. In this way, we can only call the police." Qin Sheng had long known that this would happen. He sneered and said, "Don't worry, I will be there soon." Chapter 1037. Gu Jianxin had expected that there would be a lot of resistance in Shenzhen, but he didn't expect that they would be so brazen. A branch company dared to confront the team sent by the headquarters, and they couldn't even enter the gate. This was the biggest joke in the world. Even if they tried to break in, they would be in the right. As long as the company belonged to the Qin family, it would be protected by the law. However, in order to avoid any conflicts and injuries, Gu Jianxin chose to bear with it. After all, many of the team members were girls. Who knew what kind of characters these security guards were? If they were injured, it would not be worth it. In the worst case, they could just call the police and wait for the police to come. Although they were security guards, they were actually He Yong's underlings. They already knew that the Beijing team would come to Shenzhen to check the accounts, so they were already prepared in advance. Fortunately, Gu Jianxin did not barge in. Otherwise, these guys would not be merciful. If they really hurt the elites of the team, it would not be worth it. Anyway, the police could only take these security guards away in the end. "Jianxin, what should we do next?" What did Chairman Qin say? The person in charge of the accounting firm was Tan Zhe, who was in his 40s. He was used to all kinds of disturbances, so he was very calm. Gu Jianxin said in a low voice, "Chairman Qin said that he will be here soon. He asked us not to be impulsive and try not to fight." "Well, then let's wait." To be honest, Tan Zhe was not very optimistic about this young man from the Qin family. Although he and Gu Jianxin were the main people in charge of this trip to Shenzhen, they still had to listen to this man from the Qin family. Gu Jianxin did not think that a young man could be so capable. He Yong had a deep relationship in Shenzhen. They were afraid that they would have to return without any success. Even if he came, what could he do? Seeing that these so-called people from the Beijing headquarters had retreated to the elevator, the person in charge of the security guards no longer paid attention to them. Anyway, the higher-ups had said that as long as they did not force their way in, they would not be merciful. As for how to deal with the mess, it was not their concern. If they called the police, the company's executives would naturally come out, and they could leave. About 10 minutes later, Qin Sheng, Chang Baji, Hao Lei, and the 3 bodyguards appeared in front of everyone. Everyone was a little anxious as they waited. They did not know what to do about this matter. After all, the forces in Shenzhen were so stubborn that they did not even follow the orders from Beijing. After Gu Jianxin saw Qin Sheng walking out of the elevator, he ran over and asked, "Chairman Qin, what should we do?" Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Leave the rest to me. The rest of you stay here and wait for me to deal with it. Then you can go in directly." After that, Qin Sheng walked past Gu Jianxin and Tan Zhe and led the others to the security guard at the entrance of the company. The security guard stopped them and asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "My name is Qin Sheng, the executive director of the Beijing headquarters. If I remember correctly, the controlling shareholder of this company should still be our Qin family. So what do you think I'm here for? Do I need to tell you what I'm here for? Who the hell are you? The security guard here? Can you show me your work pass? If you're the security guards here, then let me tell you that you're all fired. If you're not the security guards here, you'd better get out of here," Qin Sheng said with fervor and assurance. At first, he was polite, but in the end, his attitude was very unhappy. The security guard was originally a gangster. He did not care who was who. He only wanted to prevent anyone from entering. He said happily, "You said you're the director of the Beijing company. So you are? You said this company belongs to your family. So you said it belongs to your family? You asked us to show our work pass, so we took it? You said we were fired? We were fired by the wine glass. You said we are fired, so we are fired? You want us to get out?" Qin Sheng almost couldn't hold back his laughter. This guy must have obsessive-compulsive disorder. He refuted everything that Qin Sheng had said. It was really interesting. However, Qin Sheng didn't like the last sentence very much. That was because those who said this in front of him would end up in a miserable state. Consequently, Qin Sheng said bluntly, "What if I want to go in now?" The security guard snorted and said, "If you have the ability, then you can try." Qin Sheng liked to be so direct. He did not need to be so long-winded. They just want to see whose fist was bigger. In this aspect, they had never lost. So Qin Sheng shouted to the people who were fighting, "Lao Chong, bring them in. If anyone dares to stop you, don't show mercy." After saying that, Qin Sheng took 2 steps back. Naturally, he did not need to deal with these gangsters. After all, he was the young master of the Qin family. There was no need to do everything by himself. Moreover, it would dirty his hands. At this time, Chong Baji, Hao Lei, and third brother went forward without hesitation. Those security guards actually wanted to force their way in, so they naturally had to stop them. The leader of the security guards directly rushed to Chong Baji and reached out to push him. Unexpectedly, Chong Baji grabbed his wrist and suddenly twisted it with force. The security guard instantly grimaced in pain and cried angrily. Obviously, he was angered. He raised his fist and was about to hit Chong Baji. Chong Baji grabbed his arm and pulled him, easily throwing him to the ground with a shoulder throw. At this time, when the other security guards saw that Chong Baji actually dared to make a move, they immediately rushed to Chong Baji. They were originally born to fight and make trouble, so naturally, they were not afraid of fighting and making trouble. Moreover, the fiercer they fought today, the higher the reward they would get later. Unfortunately, they were going to be disappointed because they met a tough guy today. Before they could get close to Chong Baji, Hao Lei and the others had already blocked their way. There was no room for negotiation at all. They immediately attacked. They were already unhappy with these people who used their power to bully others. At this time, they naturally wanted to teach them a good lesson. On one side was the professionally trained regular army. There were even experts like Chong Baji and special forces like Hao Lei. On the other side was a motley crew that only knew a little bit of martial arts. They might be able to scare ordinary people, but when they met people like Chong Baji, wouldn't they be like old people eating frostbite? Therefore, there were no setbacks or waves in the process. It should be said that it was smoother than expected. In just a few minutes, Chong Baji and the others had finished the battle. These security guards who came out of nowhere all fell to the ground, screaming in pain. It could be seen that Chong Baji and the others were really not polite. Gu Jianxin, Tan Zhe, and the rest were all stunned. They didn't expect Qin Sheng to deal with it so simply and violently. Qin Sheng looked so gentle, but how could he be so violent? However, Gu Jianxin, Tan Zhen, and the others felt relieved. Who asked them to suffer so much just now? Qin Sheng looked back at Gu Jianxin and said, "Did we bring a lawyer with us?" Gu Jianxin was stunned. Then he instantly understood what Qin Sheng meant. He smiled and replied, "Chairman Qin, 10 lawyers should be enough." Hearing this answer, Qin Sheng was very satisfied. Anyway, there was a surveillance video here, and he had said what he needed to say. This was also the reason why Qin Sheng took the initiative to say those words. If they took the initiative to call the police, these lawyers would be just in time. However, he thought that they would not dare to call the police. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Now no one is stopping you. Then come in and do your business." Hearing this, Gu Jianxin, Tan Zhe, and the others immediately led all the team members into the company. The front desk of the Shenzhen company wanted to stop them, but after seeing the situation just now, they did not dare to do so. Now, they could only call the leader to ask if they wanted to call the police. In the conference room, at this moment, many of the executives of the Shenzhen branch were in meeting. Except for Hiyong, the real person in charge, who did not come, the others were basically all present, mainly the deputy general manager, the financial director, and the heads of other departments. The deputy general manager was naturally Hiyong's confidant. He said in a powerful voice, "I have said what should be said. This is not the first time. Everyone should know what to do. If anyone says something that should not be said, then don't blame Boss He for being rude. as long as you still want to work in Shenzhen. This was already a naked threat. Of course, most of them were on Hyung's side. At this time, the door of the conference room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. They saw a middle-level person panting and saying, "Mr. Liu, bad news. They are fighting in." Everyone had already known that the team from the Beijing headquarters was outside the door. It was also Mr. Liu's order to ask the security guards to stop them. After all, it was the big boss's order. What could he do? When Mr. Liu was about to get up and go out to have a look, Qin Sheng pushed the middle-level person aside and rushed in with his people. Mr. Liu scolded sternly. "Who the hell are you? How dare you break into our company's conference room? Believe it or not, I will call the police. My name is Qin Sheng. Who do you think I am? Please call the police quickly, so that I don't have to call the police later," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. These bastards ate the Qin family's rice and wanted to make trouble for the Qin family. All these years, the Qin family had been supporting them with money. Now that they actually dared to not recognize the Qin family, they could not blame the Qin family for being rude. Qin Sheng raised his head and looked at everyone in the conference room. These should be all the senior executives in Shenzhen. Qin Sheng squinted and looked at the man again. He said, "I don't care who you are, and I don't care what position you hold in the company in Shenzhen. What I can tell you now is that you have been fired. If you have any objections, you are welcome to go through the legal process. If you don't leave, I can only call the police and let the police take you away." After that, Qin Sheng did not bother to pay attention to this man at all. Since he could jump out, it meant that he was Hyung's man. Seeing that he was sitting in front, he was naturally close to the core. Since he dared to go against him, he would kill the chicken to warn the monkey. At this time, Qin Sheng looked at everyone present again and said, "Who is the director of the finance department? Tian Li Bin?" As soon as Qin Sheng's voice fell, a middle-aged man opposite him stood up with fear and trepidation and said, "I am." Qin Sheng did not talk nonsense. He said directly, "You are also fired." Chapter 1038. The big stick and carrot policy. If it were in the past, the Qin family would not have been so confident to fight with Hyung directly. After all, the Chang and group's affairs were not over at that time, and the Qin family was on the cusp of the storm. If the foundation of the Qin family was destroyed, it would not be worth it. The most important thing was that the Qin family had limited resources, and Hyung had the secret support of the sixth uncle, Elder Long. Everything would be difficult, and the Qin family could not take care of both sides. But now, the Qin family had nothing to worry about. No matter whether the Chang and group became better or worse, it had nothing to do with the Qin family. The Qin family was now making a comeback, so they had to deal with Hyung. No matter how big the loss was, they had to cut off their wrists. That was why Qin Sheng was so straightforward. He did not need to compromise with Hyung, nor did he need to inform Hyung. He directly entered the company. No matter who dared to stop him, they would be fired. Therefore, as soon as Qin Sheng entered the company, he directly fired the executive deputy general manager and the financial director. These two were the core figures of the company. If they were fired, the progress of some projects of the company might be affected, and the company would be in turmoil. But at the same time, some obstacles would be eliminated, and Hyung would not be able to cover the sky with one hand. Qin Sheng's aura was very strong, and no one dared to say anything. The deputy general manager did not have the confidence to make trouble in front of Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng was Qin Chang'an's son and the real owner of the company, while he was just a dog of the Qin family. Moreover, this dog had betrayed his owner, so the owner could not let him go. Of course, Qin Sheng would not fire anyone randomly. He was very clear about the situation of the company in Shenzhen. He knew who was close to Hyung, who was a pawn of the Qin family, and who was just a conscientious ordinary manager. Gong's son had already given him the information. It had been so long since he was ready to deal with Hyung. If he did not even know these things, he would be too useless as the successor of the Qin family. Take them to pack up and leave the company. As for whether they are suspected of committing any crimes during their stay in the company, we'll talk about it after the investigation is done, Qin Sheng said sternly. Chang Baji brought 2 bodyguards with him and took the CFO, who was already paralyzed. As for Deputy General Manager Liu, he left on his own. He would definitely not let himself be arrested without putting up a fight. He definitely had to find He Yong to discuss countermeasures. After the two of them were taken away, Qin Sheng sat in the seat where He Yong usually sat. He was no longer as serious as before. Instead, he said with a smile, "I am Qin Sheng, Qin Chang'an's son. Some of you may know me, some may not, but I think you should all know that I am the executive director of the company now. This time, the purpose of my visit to Shenzhen is very simple. That is, I found that some people in the company in Shenzhen are suspected of embezzling and misappropriating the company's assets. Therefore, I came here on behalf of the headquarters to deal with it. Now, I announced the decision of the board of directors to suspend He Yong from his position as the general manager of the company in Shenzhen. I will temporarily replace He Yong. At the same time, I appoint Gu Jianxin as the executive vice general manager and CFO of the company in Shenzhen. At the same time, he will be responsible for investigating all the accounts of the company in the past 5 years. If he finds any situation or personnel suspected of violating the law, he will be handed over to the public security organ to deal with it." This news could not help but pour a basin of cold water on everyone. Qin Sheng did not inform He Yong at all, suspended him from his position as the general manager. This was really like a bolt of lightning. Originally, they had thought that the two sides would have a tug of war. At the same time, Qin Sheng fired the executive vice general manager and the CFO, which was also a warning to everyone. If they dared to stop the headquarters from entering the company, they would all end up like this. In particular, Qin Sheng said that if he found any situation or personnel suspected of violating the law, he would all be handed over to the public security organ to deal with it. This was the situation that was really frightening. In order to make use of the Qin family's resources for his own benefit, how could He Yong not use monetary policies to win over these middle and senior executives over these years? Now that He Yong was in trouble, of course, they all felt insecure. However, at this time, Qin Sheng said, "However, don't be afraid, everyone. The Qin family only blinded our eyes and let He Yong deceive everyone in the Shenzhen branch company. Now, the headquarters also sent people to Shenzhen to clean up the evil influence, so that the Shenzhen branch company can get back on the right track as soon as possible. Moreover, the Qin family will inject a huge amount of capital into the Shenzhen branch company so that it can continue to expand its territory. Of course, I know that some of you may be close to He Yong, and some of you may be threatened or tempted by He Yong. However, as long as you can wake up in time, I will not make things difficult for you. If you can expose He Yong's illegal behavior, of course, I will welcome you with both hands. At that time, I will definitely deal with your situation according to the circumstances and will not make things difficult for you. Of course, if the information you say is very valuable, not only will I not make things difficult for you, but I will continue to put you in an important position. After all, the Qin family is not willing to let the Shenzhen branch company stop operating. The policy of stick and carrot was the best strategy. If the Qin family's attitude was too tough, these people would only unite to resist the Qin family. Moreover, it was impossible for the Qin family to fire all of them, right? In that case, the whole Shenzhen branch company would be shut down, and the subsidiaries and projects under it would lose huge profits. This was the situation that the Qin family did not want to see unless they really had no other choice. Therefore, they would hit them with a stick and point at them with a stick. In this way, they could divide them. In addition, with the information about the two chess pieces of the Qin family, it would not take long for these people to choose to protect themselves. After all, their own future and interests were the most important. As for He Yong's life or death, they could not care about it. Anyway, the Qin family's real purpose was to deal with He Yong. If they reported him earlier, they could not pursue this matter. This was also their only chance. Most importantly, many of them were very clear about how powerful the Qin family was. He Yong only started his career by relying on the Qin family. If the Qin family really wanted to deal with He Yong, no matter how troublesome it was only a matter of time. At that time, when He Yong could not bear it anymore, could they bear it? In the end, Qin Sheng stood up and said, "This is my phone. If you want, anyone can call me at any time. I hope to hear different voices. After that, Qin Sheng looked at Hao Lei and asked him to send the business cards that he had prepared to all the middle and senior executives present. Of course, this phone was newly bought, and it would not be Qin Sheng's own phone. These things would be taken care of by others. Qin Sheng was only responsible for meeting them. He had said what he needed to say. Qin Sheng had already opened up the situation for Gu Jinxin and the others with his quick methods. At this time, he walked in front of Gu Jinxin, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Mr. Gu, I'll leave the rest to you. I hope you won't let me down, and don't let the board of directors down. I hope to hear good news from you." Gu Jinxin said firmly, "Chairman Qin, don't worry. I won't let the board of directors down." Qin Sheng nodded. His task had been completed. Now he could leave the company and leave the rest to Gu Jinxin and the others. It was estimated that there would be a storm in the whole company in Shenzhen. When Qin Sheng left the company, he happened to receive a call from Fong Tianai. Fong Tianai said on the phone, "Guillaume is really desperate. He knows that you are in Shenzhen, but he doesn't take the initiative to reconcile with you. Instead, he comes to me. Do you think this kind of person is smart or stupid? If it were me, I would definitely come to you. It's better for both sides to reach an agreement." He proposed that he be eliminated. In this way, the Qin family doesn't need to make trouble, and he only needs to pay a small price. Sitting in the car, Qin Sheng asked with a smile, "He knows that the Qin family won't let him go so easily, so he doesn't dare to come to me. Why did he come to you?" Fong Tianai snorted and said, "A man should know when to yield and when to stand tall. When it's time to be a coward, you should be a coward. Don't wait until you have no chance to be a coward and regret it. He hasn't come to me yet. He just knows that I am in Shenzhen and wants to meet me. That's why I called you." "Then you should meet him and see what he is up to," Qin Sheng said in a low voice. Fong Tianai said happily, "Well, since you said so, I will meet him. Anyway, I have nothing to do. Why don't you come with me?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "I'm waiting for him to come and see me. When he's driven into a dead end, he'll naturally come to see me. This is his last option, the last resort." Fong Tianai said casually, "By the way, when are you going to Guangzhou? My father said that he wants to see you when you get there. Lulu has just come back from Beijing. Let's go back to Guangzhou together. What do you think?" "I plan to go there tomorrow," Qin Sheng replied in a deep voice. Upon hearing the news, Fong Tianai nodded and said, "All right, I'll arrange things and pick you up at the hotel tomorrow. Then we'll go back to Guangzhou together." Qin Sheng had no objection. After all, Fong Tianai was a local tyrant. He had to make arrangements for him to go to Guangzhou. This time, he only had one purpose, which was to visit old Master He, his old friend. Next, He-Yong would definitely fight back in other ways. Qin Sheng would not let him get what he wanted, so he had to meet the old leader first. After talking about business, Fong Tianai deliberately made fun of Qin Sheng. "What was the place last night? Tang Wanxiao left a deep impression on you. Do you want to go there again tonight?" Qin Sheng quickly said, "Brother Fong, please forgive me. You can drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. I'm no match for you at all. You don't know what I did last night. I almost died on the road." As for the woman named Tang Wanxiao, Qin Sheng still remembered her clearly. She gave people the feeling that she was like a spring breeze. However, this spring breeze might be a knife behind it. Qin Sheng had better stay away from such a woman. Moreover, he was not interested in such a woman. Moreover, she was the woman of a big boss. Qin Sheng did not need to cause trouble for himself. Fong Tianai laughed and said, "Haha, all right. I'll let you have a rest. When you go to Guangzhou, you won't be able to escape." After they hung up, Qin Sheng wondered what He-Yong was thinking now. He was probably flustered and exasperated. Chapter 1039. Chapter 1035. The big story. Qin Sheng's thunderous methods shocked the whole Shenzhen company. Almost all the middle and senior executives felt insecure. Over the years, the Chang and group had been growing wildly, and the Qin family had paid no attention to the assets of the three giants. Every year, the Qin family only needed to hand over the profits they deserved to the headquarters, and they would use the resources of the Chang and group to benefit the companies of the Qin family. That was why the three giants could develop rapidly. Although they made use of the resources of the Chong and group and the Qin family to develop the company more and more, the growth of the Qin family's profits was getting lower and lower. Everyone could see clearly that they had done something fishy. They must have pocketed a lot of money for themselves and so on. Qin Chang'an turned a blind eye to these things as long as they did not go too far. Moreover, they also knew where the bottom line was and how powerful Qin Chang'an was. Of course, they would not go too far. Even so, the three giants made a lot of money and invested in many related companies, which even became their own companies. It seemed that they were going to break away from the Qin family. However, as long as Qin Chang'an was there, they did not dare to do that. Who knew that the Qin family would encounter such a big trouble this time? And Qin Chang'an was even sent to prison. At this time, the three giants had to think about their own way out. Should they continue to work for the Qin family, or abandon it and become independent? Bao Fan chose the former, while He Yong and Song Shixin chose the latter. Perhaps Bao Fan had a clearer view of the situation, or perhaps he had no other choice. After all, he was in Shanghai. However, he was the first one who recognized Qin Sheng's position. He chose the path of He Yong and Song Shixin. Consequently, Qin Sheng gave Bao Fan a favorable treatment. Not only did he let Bao Fan withdraw from the Qin family smoothly, but he also allowed Bao Fan to invest in the Qin family's new company. However, if He Yong and Song Shixin also chose this way, Qin Sheng would treat them the same way. As for the interests they had occupied in the past, the Qin family would also choose to ignore it. After all, the Qin family was in a difficult situation and did not want to suffer like this. Unfortunately, they chose to stand on the opposite side of the Qin family and even joined forces with outsiders to target the Qin family and Qin Sheng. This was what the Qin family could not tolerate. Even if they had to pay a heavy price, they had to deal with Song Shixin and He Yong. Otherwise, how could the Qin family establish its prestige in the future? Now, Qin Sheng came to Shenzhen. His purpose was obvious. Everyone could see that he wanted to punish He Yong with an iron fist. Especially, He Yong knew that Qin Sheng was coming to Shenzhen, but he did not choose to meet him immediately, which made Qin even more intolerable. If He Yong had come to see him immediately, Qin Sheng might have given in and chosen to reconcile with him, as long as He Yong's conditions were sincere enough. However, Qin Sheng would not do that now, unless He Yong vomited blood. The news that the executive vice president and financial director of the Shenzhen company were fired on the spot, and He Yong's position as the general manager of the company was suspended soon spread to He Yong's ears. This made He Yong, who had just come out of Leader's home, very angry. He shouted angrily, "A gentleman prefers death to humiliation. Qin Sheng is humiliating me. I have worked hard for the Qin family for so many years, and even Qin Chang'an did not dare to treat me like this. Who does he think he is?" Maybe because the meeting with the leader was not pleasant, the leader said that it was their internal private affairs, so it was not appropriate for He Yong to intervene. Unless He Yong had a dispute with other companies, he would have an excuse to pressure them. Moreover, the Qin family was not simple. He was just a leader at the city level, so he did not want to offend the Qin family. Although He Yong was very unhappy, he could only smile apologetically, unless he wanted to continue. If not, he would not have fallen out with Chaos Han Capital in Shenzhen. As for Chaos Han Capital in Shenzhen, this leader also said that he would put pressure on them. As for the results, no one knew. Duan Kai said worriedly, "Brother, the most important thing now is to stabilize the morale of the staff. Don't let the middle and senior executives report each other. Otherwise, the more the Qin family has, the more they can kill us." He Yong thought for a while and said, "It's not that serious. There are only 4 or 5 people who really know our secret. We have something on them. As long as you teach them a lesson, I think they won't say anything. As for Lao Lu, tell him not to worry. As long as he doesn't say anything, when this thing is over, I will let him come over and be the vice president. Also, find a way to get Zhao Qi, the CFO, to go into hiding for a period of time. It will be best if he can go abroad. If he doesn't want to, don't hold back. Anyway, we have something on him. Once he comes into contact with the Qin family, find a way to get rid of him. He knows too many things, and he's quite timid. I'm not worried about him, but he's the one I'm most worried about. Duan Kai replied directly, Brother, don't worry. I have sent people to keep an eye on the company's senior executives. No matter who it is, they may leak the secret. If there is any sign, I will not be soft-hearted. At that time, I will put the blame on the Qin family. Let's see how the Qin family will handle their business in Shenzhen. He Yong asked with concern, How about Fong Ti and I? Have you made an appointment with him? Duan Kai smiled proudly and said, How can I not do what you asked me to do? I've made an appointment with him at 8:00 this evening at the Sea View restaurant in Shenzhen Bay. But he only gave us half an hour. Half an hour is enough. Since Fong Ti and I agreed to see me, it seems that this thing has a lot to do with the Fong family. But as long as Fong Ti and I asks, I won't be afraid of him asking for an exorbitant price. At worst, I will just lose some benefits. As long as I can let this thing go, I will definitely find a way to make him spit it out one day. He Yong said fiercely. He had always been a ruthless person. He had been like this when he followed Qin Shang on to conquer the world. If Qin Shang really pushed him, he would spit out some of the things that the Qin family had done in those years. Anyway, the Qin family was already at the top of the storm. Duan Kai continued to ask, Brother, do we need to keep an eye on him? He Yong said casually, Just find a few people to keep an eye on him. He has already hit me with his nameplate. Even if we keep an eye on him, it will be useless. It's better for him to put his energy on our side, so that he won't be taken advantage of when the time comes. He really had a headache now. Who knew that the Qin family would reconcile with the sixth Uncle Long? Sixth Uncle Long had abandoned them instantly. If the sixth Uncle Long had continued to fight against the Qin family, he would not have these troubles on his side. At 8:00 in the evening, He Yong arrived at an open-air restaurant on the side of Shenzhen Bay on time. This restaurant was located on the balcony of a hotel in Shenzhen Bay. It could overlook the scenery of the entire Shenzhen Bay, especially the towering landmark buildings, which were incomparably dazzling at night. Nowadays, Shenzhen Bay was getting more and more prosperous. Many people were willing to live here. For example, it was said that the Shenzhen Bay No. 1, where every inch of land was extremely expensive, was almost sold out. Just looking at the house required a deposit of 5 million yuan. It was really interesting. He Yong sat here alone, while Duan Kai and his bodyguard sat in a seat not far away. He Yong knew Fong Ti and I had also seen He Yong before. They had a lot of interactions in the past. The Fong family started in Chaos Han, and a few big shots in the Chaos Han Chamber of Commerce were directly or indirectly related to the Fong family. He Yong also participated in the Chaos Han Chamber of Commerce and the Big Shots gatherings. When Fong Ti and I appeared, it was already 8:00. He had made He Yong wait for a full 40 minutes. If it was in the past, He Yong would have left long ago. However, today he had a favor to ask of the Fong family, so He Yong could only bear with it. He even suspected that Fong Ti and I had deliberately made him wait. In fact, it was indeed so. Fong Ti and I had actually arrived long ago. He was just chatting with someone inside. Mr. He, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Fong Ti and I walked over and said with a smile. At the same time, he took the initiative to shake hands with He Yong. Although he was much younger than He Yong, he was more confident in front of He Yong. After all, he had the Fong family behind him. This was the reason why the children of those big families were extraordinary when they went out. If you had the support of a big family behind you, you would not need to care about other people's feelings. He Yong chuckled and said, Brother Fong, I'm already very satisfied that you took time out of your busy schedule to meet me. How dare I say anything else? He Yong's words were full of resentment. After Fong Ti and I sat down, he did not stand on ceremony with He Yong. He said directly, Mr. He, then just tell me what's the matter. We don't have much contact. I'm a little scared that you suddenly want to see me. Moreover, I dare not disturb you for too long. After all, you are also a busy man. He Yong muttered in his heart, Brother Fong, I know that the Fong family has a lot of properties in Shenzhen. I also admire the Fong family. Did those people offend the Fong family in any way? If so, I apologize to the Fong family in advance. That's not right. Fong Ti and I pretended to be confused and said, Mr. He, what do you mean? I don't understand. Hyung continued to say, in other words, the Fong family is interested in one of my projects. In recent years, I have indeed accumulated a few pieces of land in a prime location. If the Fong family is interested, we can jointly open them up. Of course, the Fong family will be the leader. If the Fong family is not willing to develop them together, I can also give them to them. Fong Ti and I did not expect that Hyung would be so respectful, which made him feel a little embarrassed. However, he already knew Hyung's original purpose, so he could only continue to say, Mr. He, if you have anything to say, just say it. The Fong family is not short of projects, and we are not interested in any of your land. You make me feel at a loss. Fong Ti and I was still not willing to accept his challenge, which made Hyung's heart full of resentment. You said nothing, but behind my back, you set me up. What is the matter with you? Hyung stopped smiling and said directly, since there is no conflict between us, and the Fong family is not interested in any of my projects, I don't understand why the Fong family is against me. Hearing this, Fong Ti and I immediately showed a shocked expression. However, his acting was a little exaggerated. After all, he was not a professional actor. He stood up in surprise and said, What? Is that true? No matter how stupid Hyung was, he could tell that Fong Ti and I was pretending to be ignorant. He cursed again in his heart. Keep pretending. Keep pretending. All these years, because of the Chin family's background, Hyung had never been so humble to others, especially when those big shots, in order to get the Chin family's help, were extremely respectful in front of him. Who would have thought that he would be like this one day? Since Fong Ti and I wanted to play dumb, Hyung could only continue to put the matter on the table. He said bluntly, Mr. Fong, I admit that the Fong family is a big family, but how can you bully me like this? If it was not for your pressure, why did my friends in Chaos Han suddenly stop working with me? Only the Fong family can have such a big influence. Nonsense. It's pure nonsense. Fong Ti and I made it clear that he would not admit it today. He replied with a blank face. Hyung could not stand it no matter how good-tempered he was. Obviously, he was already on the verge of going berserk. Chapter 1040. Fong Ti and I was targeting Hyung in the dark. Who would be stupid enough to admit it? That would only leave traces in people's mouths. Therefore, Fong Ti and I would definitely not admit it. Even if he was beaten up by Hyung, he would not admit it. Of course, Hyung did not have the guts to beat him up. The Fong family could have such a great influence in the Chaos Han capital circle, not only because of how big the Fong family's business was now, but also because of the Fong family's connections with the Chaos Han capital circle in Hong Kong, Macau, Nanyang, and Chaos Han. Therefore, those people stopped cooperating with Hyung because they didn't dare to offend the Fong family. Secondly, the Fong family had always been kind and would never hurt their interests. They would definitely compensate them in other aspects in the future. This was also the reason why the Fong family was so prestigious. Hyung was really angry because of Fong Tian's shamelessness. He had never seen such a shameless person. He was about to break down. He slammed the table in anger and said, Fong Ti and I don't think that I don't know that it was your Fong family who did it. If you don't want others to know, don't do it. Fong Ti and I still sat there calmly, as if Hyung's anger was ridiculous to him. He said disdainfully, Hyung, I call you Mr. He because of you. If I don't give you face, who do you think you are? How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me? If I say it's not my Fong family, it's not my Fong family. You don't believe me. If you think it's my Fong family who did it, you can take revenge however you want. We'll wait for you. Such a big noise had already attracted the attention of other people in the open-air restaurant. They all looked over and didn't know what was going on. However, Hyung saw that he lost his composure. He guessed that it was more likely to be a business dispute. After all, the two of them didn't look like ordinary people, and this high-class restaurant was not a place that ordinary people could afford. Well, Fong Ti and I, you finally admit that it was your Fong family who did it. Hyung stared at Fong Ti and I angrily. Fong Ti and I shrugged and said, When did I admit it? It's all your guess. Fong Tianai, don't go too far with your Qin family. Even a rabbit will jump over a wall when it's cornered. It's fine if you don't want to admit it, but I'll go to Guangzhou and ask the old master of the Fong family face to face. I, Hyung, have no enmity with you in the past, so why are you treating me like this? Hyung was completely helpless against Fong Tianai. When had he ever been bullied like this? In the past, it was always others who asked him for help, and many of them were big shots. Fong Tianai said casually, "If you want to go, I welcome you with both hands. The door of the Fong family will always be open for you. I just don't know if the old master wants to see you." At this time, Fong Tianai stood up with a smile and said, "Mr. He, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. There's an important drinking party tonight. I don't have time to chat with you. I wish you can solve your problem soon. If you're unhappy with our Fong family, I'll be waiting for you to take revenge. But the premise is that you can get through this." After saying that, Fong Tianai laughed and left. He was really arrogant. No wonder Fong Tianai could hang out with young people. It was not only because he looked young, but also because his mentality was young. This was the most important thing. Fong Tianai swaggered off just like that, completely ignoring the flustered and exasperated Hyung. Hyung watched as Fong Tianai left, but his eyes were about to spit fire. After Fong Tianai left, Hyung picked up the cup in his hand and smashed it on the ground. On the ground, with a bang, the cup cracked and exploded into the surroundings. Many people were angry but did not dare to say anything because they could all feel Hyung's anger at this moment. However, they still expressed their dissatisfaction. Hyung said angrily, "What are you looking at? What's there to look at?" It was not until now that Hyung realized that he did not have the chance to ask the Fong family if it was because of the Qin family. After all, Fong Tianai did not give Hyung a chance at all. The next morning, Fong Tianai went to the hotel to pick up Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng went to Guangzhou with Hao Lei and Chang Baji, while the others stayed in Shenzhen. After all, they had to protect Gu Jianxin and the others. Now that Hyung had been forced to this point, who knew what he would do next? After Qin Sheng got in the car, Fong Tianai said half-jokingly, "I asked you to inform me in advance when you come to Shenzhen. You don't have to stay here. My family owns several five-star hotels in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. I can directly leave the presidential suite to you." Since the presidential suite was rarely used, he would do Qin Sheng a favor by letting him stay there. It was more than an hour's drive from Shenzhen to Guangzhou. On the way, Fong Tianai could chat with Qin Sheng. After all, they had just met twice. Chatting on the way could improve their relationship. Therefore, they took the same car. Although Chang Baji did not drive, he sat in the front passenger seat. Qin Sheng said happily, "When we arrive in Guangzhou, I will listen to your arrangement, Brother Fong. In this way, I can also save some money. Life is not easy. You brat, you are still complaining about being poor in front of me. I guess your net worth is higher than all the people in the Fong family combined. I can't stand people like you who like to show off. How can you understand the hardships of ordinary people like us?" Alas, Fong Tianai sighed bitterly. He took the same route as Qin Sheng. The two of them looked at each other and laughed at the same time. "Same to you. Same to you." After laughing, Fong Tianai continued, "However, when we arrive in Guangzhou, I can't arrange for you to stay in a hotel. The old master has told you to come directly to our Fong family. Although it is in the suburbs, the air is good and the environment is good. Anyway, you don't have much to do in Guangzhou. Isn't it a little troublesome?" Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed. After all, the Qin family and the Fong family did not have much interaction. They became familiar with each other because of the cooperation this time. If it was the Qin family's old friend, Qin Sheng would not say much. Fong Tianai laughed and said, "It's not troublesome. After all, you're Lulu's classmate. You don't have to be so particular." The Fong family had been so enthusiastic. It was hard for Qin Sheng to refuse. In the end, he had to agree. After all, there would be more cooperation between them in the future. The closer their relationship was, the better it would be. At the same time, Qin Sheng could observe the Fong family closely and see if they were the kind of family that could cooperate with him for a long time. If they were really good, the Fong family might be the Qin family's old friend in the future. Qin Sheng asked casually. Fong Lu came back from Beijing? Fong Tianai chuckled and said, Your classmate came to Guangzhou. How could she not come back? No matter how busy she is with work, she can't do everything by herself. The girls in the Fong family are all more ambitious than men. I really don't know how much pressure their husbands will have in the future. Qin Sheng did not deny this point. It could be seen from Fong Lu's behavior. If she was not ambitious, why would she come to Beijing alone? They talked about some trivial things at home. After dealing with some trivial things at home, Fong Tianai laughed and said, Boy, you are really calm. Didn't you ask me about the result of my meeting with He Yong last night? Weren't you afraid that I would sell you? Qin Sheng laughed and said, Brother Fong, if I said I forgot about it, would you believe me? Besides, your brother Fong is a kind person. What do I have to worry about? Even if you sell me, I don't care. Anyway, I'm not afraid of him. What can He Yong do? Fong Tianai was a little dissatisfied and said, Damn it, I have been running around for you, but you forgot about it. Qin Sheng smiled and said, Well, Brother Fong, I will toast you later. Tell me about the result. Speaking of this, Fong Tianai became interested. He said excitedly, You don't know how angry He Yong was. I'm afraid he won't be able to eat for a few days. No matter what he said, I refused to admit it. I said that the Fong family bullied him too much, that there was no enmity between him and the Fong family in the past. Why did the Fong family target him and so on? I refused to admit it, saying that there was no such thing. The Fong family is a kind person. How could we do such a thing? If you really think that the Fong family did it, then you can vent your anger on the Fong family. Anyway, the Fong family doesn't care. In the end, he hit the table and only scolded me. I even wanted him to scold me. If he could hit me, I would be even happier. In this way, I could deal with him openly. Don't you think so? Qin Sheng couldn't help but give Fong Tianai a thumbs up and said, Brother Fong, you are really a kind person. He Yong probably hates you now. Who does he think he is? In the past few years, he became famous because of the Qin family. He thought that by knowing the Qin family, he could build a relationship with the Chong and group. After all, several big insurance groups of the Chong and group have so much money in their hands. Many tycoons asked him for help, who knew that he didn't know how to be grateful and hit the Qin family when it was in trouble. Now that he has lost the protection of the Qin family, who does he think he is? If he has the ability, he can come to the Fong family. I want to see what he is. Fong Tianai didn't want to deal with He Yong at all and scolded. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, Brother Fong is right. It seems that I made the right friend. The Qin family will remember that the Fong family helped the Qin family today. It is a favor that the Qin family owes the Fong family. In the future, the Qin family will definitely return this favor. Fong Tianai muttered, Qin Sheng, you are too polite. What kind of favor is this? Didn't the Qin family sell the shares of 2 companies in the city to the Fong family at a discount? You don't know how many people are eyeing the shares of the 2 companies in the city. The Fong family didn't have a chance to get involved before. Speaking of this, I should thank you. Then let's not be polite. Today, I will accompany you and have a drink with you, Brother Fong. Qin Sheng also said straightforwardly. Fong Tianai patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, That's more like it. I like a little brother like you. From Shenzhen to Guangzhou, Fong Tianai and Qin Sheng chatted more and more congenial. Such a young man not only had the calmness and ruthlessness of his generation, but also had the character and temper of the contemporary young people. He quite liked to hang out with Qin Sheng. When Qin Sheng went to Guangzhou, the atmosphere in the old house of the Lin family in Ningbo was a bit depressed recently. Old Madame Lin's condition was getting worse and worse. The doctor had given a notice of critical illness. The Lin family had also started to prepare for the funeral. The old lady had been worried about her granddaughter who had gone to the United States. Chapter 1041. The old lady is critically ill. Old Madame Lin's health had never been very good. Over the years, she had been hospitalized intermittently. It seemed that this was what happened to people when they grew old. These illnesses were the most torturous. No one could escape this calamity. How many old people could leave without suffering? How much good karma would they have accumulated in their lifetime? In fact, Mrs. Lin's situation was much better. After all, the Lin family was not an ordinary family. If it had been an ordinary family, the old lady would have passed away long ago. How could she have survived until now? Master Lin was rich. No matter how expensive the medicine was, no matter how difficult it was to find an expert, or how advanced the technology was, he could buy and hire them. As long as the old lady was not tortured by the disease and could live, he would be satisfied. After all, both Lin Chongting and Lin Chonghe were filial sons. In this aspect, they did not need to have any objection. Even if one of them had an objection, the other would be able to bear it. However, life was limited. Not everyone could live longer just because they had money. Otherwise, those rich people would have lived to be 100 years old. After all, there are so many difficult and incurable diseases in this world. It could only be said that if you had money, you would only have more opportunities. There was also old Madame Lin's situation. Even if it was the same disease, it still depended on each person's physical condition. It was not something that could be decided by money. The old house of the Lin family was indeed a place with good feng shui. Several generations of the Lin family had lived here. As time went by, the architectural style gradually changed. However, the area of the old house was getting larger and larger. It was more like a private park. However, the headquarters of the Lin family had moved to Shanghai. Only old Lady Lin, Lin Chongting, and his wife lived here. The rest of the people were mostly nannies and servants. Because the old lady's condition had deteriorated rapidly and she was hospitalized again, Lin Chonghe had rushed back from Shanghai. Several elders of the Lin family were sitting in the living room and discussing about the old lady. Lin Chonghe took the lead and said, "Let's transfer to Shanghai. After all, the medical technology in Shanghai is more advanced than that in Ningbo." As soon as Lin Chonghe finished his words, his younger sister stood out and said, "No, our mother is already in such a bad condition. If you continue to torture her at this time, aren't you afraid that she will die on the way? What's more, the doctors have already said that they have consulted with the experts in Shanghai. Even if she's transferred to Shanghai, she can't hold on for more than a few days. Her body is like a dying lamp. Don't let her suffer any pain." Lin Chongting had not been seen outside for a long time. Since the incident with Qin Sheng, he almost stayed in the old house of the Lin family. No matter who called him, he would not leave the old house of the Lin family. He no longer asked about anything related to the Lin family's company, leaving everything to Lin Chonghe, Lin Su, and Lin Zhe. He also believed that they could handle everything without him. He just wanted a hospital to accompany the old lady. After all, she was his biological mother, who had raised him and his siblings painstakingly. Now that she had become like this, he preferred to accompany his mother more. Lin Chongting said quietly, "You're right. The doctor also wants us to stop tormenting her. Even if she goes to the operating table, there's a 90% chance that she won't be able to come down. Since last year, she has already had 2 operations. She can't take the 3rd operation anymore. Let's just let her leave peacefully." Lin Chonghe frowned and said, "Brother, do you mean that we should prepare for the funeral now?" "Not exactly. I mean that we should let all the children come back, no matter whether they're the direct or collateral relatives, uncle, aunt, or us. If they can come back, they should come back to see the old lady again. After all, this may be the last time they will see her." Lin Chongting said. The old lady also missed these children very much. Lin Chonghe did not say anything more. He said directly, "I will ask someone to call them now. Second brother, when will Susu and Yaya come back? Why on earth did they have to go on a business trip for so long? They didn't even come back for the new year. Now that our mother is like this, they should come back. We love her 2 granddaughters the most. Other people value boys more than girls, but she likes girls the most. If they don't come back soon, they probably won't be able to see their grandmother for the last time." Lin Chonghe's sister said in a low voice. Since Lin Su had taken over the power of the Lin family, they had changed their attitude. No one was willing to go against their interests. No matter how they complained behind their backs, they had to be polite in front of others. Speaking of this, Lin Chonghe's expression changed slightly. He didn't know how to explain it to Qin Sheng. If it hadn't been for this, he wouldn't have known such a big thing had happened. Lin Su had been pregnant for several months. He didn't even need to think about it to know that the child was Qin Sheng's. He didn't know what to do at the moment. If it hadn't been for the old lady, he probably wouldn't have known this until now, nor would he have known why Lin Su went to the United States. Changhe, what's wrong? Lin Chongting asked thoughtfully. Lin Changhe frowned and said, Big brother, Ye will come back in 2 days. But Susu may not come back in a short time. Something happened to her in the United States, and there are some problems with her visa. I'm a little worried that she can't come back in time. What's wrong? Lin Chongting asked in surprise. Maybe it was because he had experienced that thing, or maybe it was because he had seen a lot of changes. His attitude towards his daughter was getting better and better. Now, if anyone in the Lin family dared to say anything bad about Lin Su, he would scold him severely. Especially his wife, who had always been against Lin Su since childhood, had been scolded by him many times. At this time, the others also looked at Lin Changhe. Except for Lin Chongting's wife, most of the others liked Lin Su very much. It was because of the special environment of the Lin family that they did not dare to express their feelings. Besides, because of Lin Su's situation later, they had to change their attitude towards Lin Su. Anyway, Lin Su was the biggest shareholder of the company under the Lin family. Who dare not to worry about Lin Su? Lin Changhe was afraid that others would think too much, so he explained in a hurry, I am working on it. The Qin family has also contacted our friends in the United States. There should be no problem. We will try our best to let Lin Su come back in the shortest time, and try our best to let her see the old lady for the last time. In fact, Lin Changhe was very clear that Lin Su might not be able to see the old lady for the last time, because Lin Su's belly was very big now. If she came back, everything would be exposed. As Xue Qingyan had talked to him at that time, no matter for the Lin family, Lin Su and the baby in her belly, as long as Lin Su came back, she would be in the most danger. Lin Changhe was very clear about this, so he helped to keep it a secret. Lin Changhe's sister let out a long sigh as she said, I hope Susu can come back in time. The old lady has muttered several times recently. Although they have video called a few times, I'm afraid that the old lady will regret it if she can't see the old lady in person. Lin Chongting shook his head and said, Let's not talk about this. You better do as I said. Inform our relatives and friends, prepare for the funeral, and contact the hospital. I hope her mother can get through this. If she can't, it's her fate. Maybe it's better this way. At least she doesn't have to suffer anymore. After saying these words, Lin Chongting stood up and left. The rest of the Lin family looked at each other and finally left. When Lin Changhe was about to go back to his yard, he was stopped by Lin Zhe. He didn't believe what his second uncle had said, that Lin Su couldn't come back because of the accident. Lin Su and Lin Yu had gone to the United States together, so why could Lin Yu come back but Lin Su couldn't? Thinking of what had happened to Lin Su and Qin Sheng, Lin Zhe suspected that it had something to do with Qin Sheng. Lin Zhe frowned and asked, Second uncle, what happened to Susu? What happened to him? Lin Zhe frowned and asked. Lin Changhe looked at Lin Zhe and said, Actually, I don't know. Xue Qingyan told me. She's been dealing with Lin Su's affairs in Los Angeles these days. If you really want to know, you can call Xue Qingyan. Lin Changhe cleverly put the blame on Xue Qingyan. Anyway, he wouldn't know anything. Lin Zhe didn't expect his second uncle to be so cunning, so he didn't know what to say. When he came back to his senses, his second uncle had already left. He was not familiar with Xue Qingyan, so how could he contact her? It was almost noon in China, but it was already dark in Los Angeles. In a mansion in the rich district of Los Angeles, Xue Qingyan had just had dinner with Lin Su and Lin Yu. Lin Su was supposed to take a walk outside, and Lin Yu usually accompanied her sister. Although the days in Los Angeles were a little boring, Lin Yu also made many new friends. Moreover, she had studied in the United States before, but at Harvard. Lin Yu knew that she might spend a long time with her sister in the United States, and it would be difficult for her to go back to China in a short time. Even after her sister gave birth, she had to take care of her sister. Therefore, she planned to apply for a master's degree in UCLA so that she wouldn't be too bored. She could go home after school every day, and her life would be more fulfilling. Moreover, UCLA was a world-famous university, so she would have more confidence in her studies. However, it might be difficult for her parents to solve the problem. If she studied in the United States, she might have to stay for another 2 or 3 years before she could go back to China. At that time, she would probably be an old woman, and her parents would be worried sick. However, she didn't expect that she would have to go back to China soon, because her grandma was critically ill, and her father asked them to go back to see her grandma for the last time as soon as possible. After hearing the news, both Lin Yu and Lin Su were stunned for a long time. They knew that their grandma was in poor health, but they didn't expect that it would be so serious. Their grandma cared about them the most since they were children, especially Lin Su, who was almost taken care of by their grandma. Without their grandma, she might not be who she was today. Therefore, no matter what, they had to go back to see their grandma for the last time. It didn't matter if Lin Yu went back, because she didn't need to worry about anything. But what should they do with Lin Su's current situation? Therefore, Xue Qingyan had to tell Lin Changhe everything, and finally made up such an excuse because she had no other way. Chapter 1042. Xue Qingyan was clear that the Lin family could not keep it a secret forever. Sooner or later, the Lin family would find out. In order to prevent the Lin family from finding out about it, which would put Lin Su in a difficult situation, Xue Qingyan decided to tell Lin Changhe now. Because Xue Qingyan was very clear that Lin Changhe was not someone else. If it was someone else in the Lin family, Xue Qingyan would not dare to show her cards. However, if it was Lin Changhe, Xue Qingyan would not be afraid to do so. Because no matter whether he was on the side of the Lin family or for Lin Su, Lin Changhe would not reveal this secret, because the final result would not be worth the loss. Lin Changhe was annoyed when he found out about it. He was annoyed that Xue Qingyan didn't discuss it with him earlier, so that he could be prepared in advance. She told him now, which really caught him unprepared. However, after calming down, Lin Changhe had to discuss the countermeasures with Xue Qingyan. Just as Xue Qingyan had guessed, Lin Su was pregnant, and it was Qin Sheng's child that was ruined. Moreover, Qin Sheng was currently engaged to the woman from the Song family. If this news suddenly broke out, not only would the Lin family and Lin Su be in danger, but the Qin family would also be in danger. If everyone knew about it, the Qin family would become the target of public criticism. If this matter was kept hidden, no one would know about Lin Su's pregnancy, and nothing would happen. After all, Lin Su had broken up with Qin Sheng, and no one would pay attention to Lin Su anymore. After Lin Su gave birth to the child, everything would be over. At that time, the child would grow up in the United States quietly. No matter Lin Su returned to China or stayed in the United States, no one would know that the child was Lin Su's, and no one would suspect that the child was Qin Sheng's. If someone really found out, they could just make up a story. For example, they could make up a story that Lin Su was an American boyfriend or that Lin Su had adopted him. These are not difficult operations. As long as they did not take it too seriously, no one would find out the truth. This matter would then be a happy ending for everyone. In the end, Lin Changhe was selfish. After all, Lin Su's child was Qin Sheng's, and Qin Sheng was the successor of the Qin family. This fact was beyond doubt. No matter how cruel Qin Sheng was, he would not deny this child. After the crisis of the Qin family, in another 10 or 20 years, when all the elders had passed away, when Qin Sheng had become a man like Qin Chang'an, and when the child grew up, no one would be able to change this fact. The child would eventually be recognized by the Qin family, and the Lin family would be completely tied to the Qin family. If Lin Su gave birth to a boy, it would be even worse. Lin Changhe was not taking advantage of Lin Su and the child. He was just doing it for the sake of the Lin family. Of course, it was also for the sake of Lin Su and the child. He certainly did not want to see the child become a fatherless child. Even if the Qin family refused to accept the fact because of a strong resistance, Lin Su and the child still had the Lin family. After all, Lin Su was the biggest shareholder of the Lin family. When Lin Changhe and Xue Qingyan talked about this on the phone, he asked directly, does Qin Sheng know about this? Shui Qingyan did not deny it. Qin Sheng knows. When Lin Su went to the United States, Qin Sheng came to Shanghai in person. It's for me. Is it Qin Sheng's idea to give birth to the child? Lin Changhe continued to ask. He had to find out the key information, which was related to many things in the future. Shui Qingyan answered truthfully, yes, this is Qin Sheng's idea. He also arranged this in the United States. At present, only a few of us know about this matter. Lin Changhe said in the end, okay, I got it. Leave the Lin family to me. But the old lady is in danger. You have to keep Susu safe. No matter what happens in the country, she can't come back. The Lin family had been worried about the old lady. If Lin Su came back, it would cause a greater disturbance. Lin Changhe thought to himself. After hanging up the phone, Shui Qingyan felt a headache. It was not easy for her to talk to Lin Changhe, but she still had to comfort Lin Su. She felt that she had become Qin Sheng's housekeeper all of a sudden. He had a good life outside, but she had to clean up after him. She really didn't know whether she owed Lin Su in her previous life or something. At this moment, Shui Qingyan was comforting Lin Su in the living room. Lin Yu was also comforting Lin Su. Lin Su's face was still covered with tears. She had been raised by her grandmother. Without her grandmother's protection, she did not know how to live in the Lin family. Grandma was her closest person in the world. Now her grandmother was in critical condition, but she could not go back to see her. How could she bear it? Lin Yu held her sister's hand and said, Sister, I just want to go back to see her. Don't worry. Grandma will be fine. She's such a good old lady. How could God let her go? Lin Su shook her head and said, Don't lie to me. I know Grandma is dying. Lindsay told me that I must go back to see her. I am afraid that I will never have the chance to see her again. Lin Yu said helplessly, Sister, how can you go back like this? For the sake of the child, you have to think about it. At this time, Shui Qingyan said bluntly, Susu, you are not an impulsive person. Think about it carefully. If you go back with a big belly, what will happen? Let's not talk about other things first. What will happen when you go back? At that time, the Lin family will ask you who the child belongs to. How will you answer this question? If your grandmother asks you, what will you say? Of course, you can say that it is Qin Sheng's. But your grandmother is in critical condition. If Qin Sheng does not show up by your side, what does it mean? The old lady is so smart. How could she not know? Besides, most people in the Lin family already know that you broke up with Qin Sheng. But you are pregnant with Qin Sheng's child. How will the Lin family think of you? Can you bear this pressure? Finally, what if other people know about this, such as the Song family and their friends related to the Song family? At that time, not only will the Lin family be at the forefront of the storm, but the Qin family will also be criticized because of this. At that time, you and Qin Sheng will be alone and no one can help you. If you think this through and still want to go back, then I won't stop you. Shui Qingyan had already said what she needed to say. She believed that Lin Su would not be so impulsive, because Lin Su was just overwhelmed by the grief of her grandmother. When she thought through these things, she would naturally not return to China. She was not doing it for herself. She would do it for the child, for Qin Sheng, and for the Lin family. Lin Yu continued, Sister, don't be too excited. Be careful not to affect the child. I will contact you at any time after going back. If anything happens, I will inform you immediately. Don't worry too much. Grandma will be fine. At this time, Lin Su finally calmed down. She said softly, What time is the flight tomorrow? Around 8 in the morning, Lin Yu replied. When she was not here, Sister Qingyan would take care of her sister. Sister Qingyan would not go back until she came back, so she was more relieved. Lin Su thought for a while and said, I will send you tomorrow morning. Originally, Lin Yu wanted to say that there was no need to go through so much trouble. However, she felt that this was also her sister's kind intention. After all, her sister could not go back to visit Grandma. This was the only thing she could do. In fact, she sympathized with her sister very much and could understand her sister's feelings. She could only hope that Grandma would be fine this time. Hearing this, Shui Qingyan finally let out a long sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Lin Su would go back to visit Grandma, regardless of everything. It was said that a pregnant woman would be stupid for 3 years. Shui Qingyan did not dare to treat Lin Su as a normal person now. Moreover, Lin Su had been in a bad mood recently, so it was quite possible that she would make such a choice. After all, the old lady was too important to her. Shui Qingyan could not help thinking whether she should call Qin Sheng and tell him about this. On one hand, she wanted Qin Sheng to care about Lin Su and comfort her during this period. Of course, what Qin Sheng said could make Lin Su feel most relieved. At the same time, she was also thinking whether she should suggest Qin Sheng to go to Ningbo and visit Grandma in person. This was not an unreasonable request. Even if others knew about it, it was reasonable. After all, Grandma had always supported Qin Sheng and Lin Su to be together in the beginning. She cared about them very much. Now Grandma was critically ill. If Qin Sheng went to visit Grandma, others would not say anything. Although they had broken up, they were still friends. Moreover, Grandma was an elder who treated Qin Sheng well. Moreover, in fact, many people in the Lin family were just guessing that Qin Sheng and Lin Su might break up. If Qin Sheng went to the Lin family, it could also relieve Lin Su's pressure. Others would not think too much about it. Needless to say, Shui Qingyan was really thoughtful. No wonder she could become an independent and strong woman. On the domestic side, Qin Sheng had already arrived in Guangzhou. Fang Ti and I talked a lot with Qin Sheng on the way. Most of them were about love affairs and family trifles. Of course, Qin Sheng also asked Fang Ti and I many questions about business. After all, Fang Ti and I was a person at the level of the president who was in charge of such a big group. The layout and strategic vision he had were not something that ordinary managers could have. Fang Ti and I also told Qin Sheng everything he knew, so Qin Sheng learned a lot. Therefore, the more than 1 hour journey was actually very fast. It felt like it was over before they had spent much time together. Fang Ti and I brought Qin Sheng directly to the Fang family's manor in the suburbs. This was where old Master Fang lived and where the Fang family had lived for decades. Originally, it was just a place where old Master Fang gave his father his retirement. Who knew that old Master Fang also lived here after his retirement? Therefore, this became the Fang family's new home, with all the necessary facilities. When Fang Ti and I brought Qin Sheng here, Fang Lu was already waiting. Chapter 1043. Although they were in the suburbs, it was not easy to own a manor of more than 100 acres in a prosperous place like Guangzhou. It showed how rich the Fang family was. Moreover, the Fang family was one of the top 10 real estate developers in Guangdong. They had many real estate projects in the whole of Guangdong. It was not difficult to build such a manor. However, the Fang family had been making a fortune in recent years. Other than real estate, they also invested in the surrounding provinces. Almost all of their other industries were in the Guangdong area. It showed the Fang family's determination to develop deeply in Guangdong. Of course, it might be because they knew their own ability well that they did not expand their territory easily. This also caused the Fang family to miss the craziest time of the real estate industry. However, they were quite successful in other industries. From a main gate of the Fang family's manor, they had to go through a forest to see the real face of the Fang family. On both sides of the road were all kinds of precious trees and flowers. It felt like a paradise. The whole manor was distributed with several buildings of different styles. It felt like a holiday manor. Qin Sheng envied such an environment. However, the Qin family had always been small. Although they had the ability to build such a manor, it would be too wasteful. They were not as prosperous as the Fang family. Fang Lu was waiting for Qin Sheng at the gate outside. It could be seen that she had given Qin Sheng enough face. This was a true welcome from afar. Chang Baji got out of the car and sat in the car at the back. Fang Lu naturally sat in the front passenger seat and took the initiative to explain the history of the Fang family manor to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly, "Fang Lu, you are too polite. You don't have to pick me up here." Fang Lu deliberately made fun of him. "I came here with a task for Ryu, to see if you've been fooling around in Shenzhen. That's why I didn't come here to check in advance, lest you're seen by others when you go in later. If Ryu hears about it, I won't be able to protect you." Qin Sheng said happily. I have always been strict. If you don't believe me, you can ask Brother Fong if I have affairs in Shenzhen. Fortunately, Fong Tianai was thick-skinned enough. Otherwise, he would have been embarrassed long ago, because he had taken Qin Sheng to fool around on the first night of his arrival in Shenzhen. If the Song family found out about this, wouldn't they come to Guangzhou to settle the score? Fong Lu did not know whether to laugh or cry. She did not know if Qin Sheng knew about her uncle's style. If someone else said this, Fong Lu would definitely say that she did not believe it. Okay. I know you're strict. No wonder no girl dared to approach you when you were in Tsinghua University, Fong Lu said. The two of them talked and laughed, and the atmosphere became lively in an instant. At this time, Qin Sheng looked at the manner of the Fong family and said, the Fong family is really rich. Such a big manor is a little extravagant. Such a big manor is a bit luxurious. Or do the big families in the South like to live in such a manor? After my grandfather retired, he bought this place, intending to build a place where he could spend the rest of his life. Who knew that everyone would like this place, so they bought the surrounding land and added some buildings. Every weekend, they would come back here to relax. In the end, it became what it is now. But to the public, this is just a holiday villa. Otherwise, people would definitely gossip about it, Fong Lu explained. She really felt that her grandfather had good taste. Putting aside how much the land was worth now, such a paradise was something that anyone would be envious of. Therefore, when Fong Lu used to live in Guangzhou, she would come back almost every week. Living here made her feel like she was back in the countryside, far away from the city. Fong Tianai said with a smile, Brother Fong, it is okay to give it to me. I will definitely disturb you when I come to Guangzhou in the future. Moreover, living here is much more comfortable than living in a hotel. As for the skills of your chef, I will definitely have a good taste today. Actually, I don't have many pursuits. Living here is one of them. Qin Sheng replied with a smile, Brother Fong, it is okay to give it to me. I will definitely bother you when I come to Guangzhou in the future. Moreover, living here is much more comfortable than living in a hotel. As for the skills of your chef, I will definitely have a good taste today. Actually, I don't have many pursuits. Loving good food is one of them. That's great. Old Master has already ordered the kitchen to prepare lunch, Fong Tianai said happily. For the rest of the time, Fong Lu introduced the situation of the Fong family's manor to Qin Sheng, such as how old a certain ancient tree was, where the flowers and grass were transported from, and the bonsai and so on were made by a master, and so on. After listening to her, Qin Sheng felt that the Fong family was really rich. Fong Lu did not live with her parents in the manor. Instead, she lived in her own independent small building. This was the Fong family's recognition of Fong Lu. Even after Fong Lu got married, the house still belonged to Fong Lu. For example, Fong Lu's aunt also had her own independent small building here. The decoration style of the small building was completely according to Fong Lu's own requirements. It could be said that it was filled with the heart of a young girl. It was completely different from Fong Lu's image in the outside world. Maybe most people were like this. Only they knew what they were like. Not long after, a few cars stopped in front of the Fong family's main building. This was also the largest building in the Fong family's manor. The other smaller buildings surrounded this building like stars surrounding the moon. Usually, only Grandfather Fong and Grandmother Fong lived in the main building. Occasionally, the family and friends of Grandfather Fong and Grandmother Fong would come over to accompany them. After all, these children were quite busy with work. Grandfather Fong and Grandmother Fong lived, and it was a bit boring here. When the cars stopped, Qin Sheng saw Old Master Fong, Old Lady Fong, and other people waiting in front of the main building. This made Qin Sheng feel a bit flattered. After getting out of the car, he hurriedly walked up to Old Master Fong and Old Lady Fong and said, Grandpa, Grandma, Qin Sheng, a junior has come to visit you. How can I let you welcome me in person? Chong Baji and Hao Lei had already gotten out of the car and went to prepare gifts for Old Master Fong and Old Lady Fong. Although these gifts were bought in Shenzhen and the Fong family did not lack anything, Qin Sheng could not come empty-handed. Moreover, The gifts did not mean much. These were all basic etiquette. Old Master Fong said with a smile, "You have come from afar. These are what we should do. We just take it as a warm-up. You don't have to be so restrained." Old Master Fong was already so old, but he looked very energetic. As for Old Lady Fong, she looked at Qin Sheng with a kind smile, like most old ladies. Except for Fong Lu's aunt and uncle, all the other members of the Fong family were present. Fong Lu's parents were standing next to the old master. Fong Tianya's wife and children were also present. The Fong family had mobilized so many people to show their respect to Qin Sheng, which made him feel a little embarrassed. Fong Lu was Qin Sheng's classmate. Naturally, she was the one who introduced them. "Grandpa, Grandma, this is Qin Sheng, the classmate I told you about. When I was in Beijing, he took good care of me." Old Master Fong deliberately made fun of his granddaughter and said, "We know. You have said it many times. If we didn't know that you have someone you like, we would have suspected that he is your boyfriend." Fong Lu blushed a bit and said, "I don't deserve it." Qin Sheng didn't know what to say. Fortunately, Fong Ti and I helped him in time. He smiled and introduced the rest of the Fong family. Qin Sheng also smiled and greeted them one by one. It could be said that he knew everyone in the Fong family. However, today's scene was a bit like Fong Lu bringing her boyfriend back to meet her parents. Maybe other servants of the Fong family who didn't know about it thought so. At this time, Qin Sheng walked slowly into the Fong family's main building with the rest of the Fong family. He walked next to Old Master Fong. Old Master Fong smiled and chatted with Qin Sheng. He said that the Fong family and the Qin family had some relationship, which surprised Qin Sheng a bit. It turned out that when Qin Chang'an came to Shenzhen, he had contacted the Fong family. However, they didn't reach a cooperation agreement. Otherwise, the relationship between the two families might be very close now. While Qin Sheng was visiting the Fong family, the atmosphere in Beijing was a bit heavy. Sixth uncle had been having trouble sleeping and eating these days because he had received reliable news from several friends that the Chong and school might have some big moves recently. Chapter 1044. Preparing for the worst. Why did sixth uncle have trouble sleeping and eating these days? Ever since he had talked with Elder Long that day, sixth uncle had been somewhat worried. He had guessed what Elder Long was thinking. Elder Long just wanted to use them to get rid of the Qin family, and they wanted to use Elder Long's influence to kill Qin Chang'an. In this way, they would have a common goal, which was equal to common interests. That was why they could work together. But now, Elder Long only cared about his own interests, regardless of sixth uncle's life and death. Of course, sixth uncle would not agree. Therefore, after talking with Elder Long that day, sixth uncle was dubious about what Elder Long had said. He did not give up, but inquired about it through his own connections. Recently, more and more unfavorable news came out, which made sixth uncle somewhat angry with Elder Long. What did Qin Chang'an say? Qin Chang'an's news was about some targets that the Chong and family had transferred benefits to in recent years, especially through whom. Of course, it involved sixth uncle. Only sixth uncle had such a great ability. Secondly, some of the targets that the Chong and family had transferred benefits to had fallen from power, while some were still in power. Therefore, this was the most terrible thing. What was more terrible was that these things were told by Qin Chang'an. Obviously, Qin Chang'an had chosen the path of hurting himself and his enemy. Secondly, the Joint Investigation Group, which had been suspended, had made some moves recently again. Not only had they entered the headquarters of the Chong and family for investigation many times, but they had also gone to the subsidiary companies under the Chong and family to investigate. Sixth uncle was somewhat anxious. Now that the Chong and family was under their control, it was obvious that something had gone wrong. In the Sihiyuan, sixth uncle sat alone at the tea house drinking tea. Unconsciously, he lit a cigarette, which he had quit for a long time. The cigarette was the most common Central Hoi 08, which he used to smoke. No matter where he went, he would take it with him. Now that he suddenly started smoking again, it could be seen that sixth uncle was very upset. Today, his eldest daughter came to visit him. As soon as she entered the room, she saw that the room was full of smoke. She walked over in surprise and said, "Dad, Why did you start smoking again? Didn't the doctor tell you to quit? Aren't you afraid that your old disease will come back if you keep smoking? I'll only smoke one. I'm craving the taste. If you say you don't want to smoke, then I won't. Sixth uncle put out the cigarette. He raised his head and smiled at his daughter, who always liked to cry when she was young. In the blink of an eye, she was already a grandmother. Time passed so quickly. The outside world had already undergone earth-shaking changes, but some things seemed to have never changed. At this time, one of Sixth Uncle's henchmen came in and told him that Zhe Yuan was here. Zhe Yuan came in immediately. He smiled and greeted Sixth Uncle's daughter. Sister Hua, why are you here? I haven't seen you for a long time. How have you been? Ziyuan, this is my home. Why can't I come? What are you saying? Sixth Uncle's daughter was a bit unhappy. Zhe Yuan laughed and said, Sister Hua, I didn't mean that. You still have the same temper. By the way, I heard that your eldest son went somewhere recently. That boy is quite smart and has a sense of propriety. I think he will have a bright future. Sister Hua's face lit up when she heard Zhe Yuan praising her son. Both of her sons were quite capable. Of course, the main reason why they could progress so quickly was because of their family background. Otherwise, how could they progress so quickly even though they had the same ability? Sister Hua smiled when she heard Zhe Yuan praising her son. 7 o'clock? Sixth uncle said at this time. You go and talk to your mother. I have something to talk to Zhe Yuan about. After his daughter left, Sixth uncle asked Zhe Yuan to sit opposite him. He poured a cup of tea for Zhe Yuan. Zhe Yuan frowned and asked, Sixth uncle, why did you call me here in such a hurry? What's wrong? Zhe Yuan, I always feel that something is wrong. I'm afraid we have to prepare for the worst. Uncle Lu said straightforwardly. This sentence directly stunned Zhe Yuan. Why do they suddenly have to prepare for the worst? Zhe Yuan asked subconsciously, what's the worst? That is, Qin Chang'an will completely detonate the Chang and system and let everyone die with him. At that time, I guess we will be in trouble. Now that the Chang and system is in our hands, we have paid a great price. If the matter is thoroughly investigated, all our efforts will be in vain, and our family will also be affected. So we have to prepare for the worst, Sixth uncle said slowly. The more he said, the more he felt the pressure. Zhe Yuan shook his head and said, Sixth uncle, I don't think Qin Chang'an will do that. If he really does that, the Qin family will eventually give up all the benefits they have gained this time. It is meaningless to do that. Sixth uncle squinted and said, he has already separated the Qin family from the Chang and system. It may not have much impact on the Qin family. Now I think he is playing a big game of chess. We have all become his chess pieces, and he himself is also a chess piece on this chessboard. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Zhe Yuan continued to ask, Sixth uncle, anyway, there's still Elder Long. He is so powerful. Sixth uncle said seriously, I'm afraid that even he can't protect himself at that time. You should know that Elder Long and the Qin family are sworn enemies. Zhu Qinghuan might have been killed by him. Besides, now that he has appeared again, I don't believe that the Qin family doesn't know about it. I'm afraid that the Qin family will also plot against him, Sixth uncle said seriously. Zhe Yuan found it funny and said, the Qin family doesn't have this ability, does it? Sixth uncle suddenly raised his head and said with his eyes lit up, Zhe Yuan, have you forgotten about the Zhu family? Back then, old master Zhu couldn't protect himself, so he had no chance to save the Qin family. As a result, his daughter died in an accident. Old master Zhu didn't know about it. Nowadays, the Zhu family is not the Zhu family anymore. Not to mention the power that old master Zhu has accumulated over the years. Zhu Weigua's status in the military and the son-in-law of the Zhu family. Do you think that Elder Long can defeat him? The most important thing is that Zhu Qinghuan might have been killed by Elder Long. This is no longer a matter of the Qin family. Instead, it involves the Zhu family. If the Zhu family really takes action, Elder Long will be in danger. This time we are so close to Elder Long. At that time, we don't know what will happen. Of course, these are the worst results, and they may not happen. Zhe Yuan couldn't help but ask, Sixth uncle, just tell me directly, what should we do in the worst case? Sixth uncle thought for a while and said slowly, "That is to cut ties with the family. Everything will be related to us in the end. When the day comes, we can lose our interests or sacrifice ourselves, but we can't let the whole family be in danger. Do you understand?" Zhe-Yuan didn't expect that it would be so serious. However, he had always trusted Sixth Uncle. Without hesitation, he gritted his teeth and said, "I understand." While Sixth Uncle and Zhe-Yuan were preparing for a rainy day, Qinsheng still didn't know what had happened in Beijing. Qinsheng didn't know what had happened in Beijing yet. Maybe it was not urgent, so Qin Ran and the others didn't plan to tell Qinsheng. After all, the Qin family had nothing to do with the Chong and system now. Even if something happened, it would be Sixth Uncle's problem. The Fong family treated Qinsheng with great hospitality, which was not something that ordinary friends could enjoy. Of course, Qinsheng knew that the Fong family treated him so well, not because he was Fong Lu's classmate, but because he was Qin Chang'an's son, the son-in-law of the Song family, and the nephew of the Zhu family. That was why he was treated so well. Qinsheng sat beside old Master Fong and said with a smile, "When we were on the road, Brother Fong said that the Fong family chef was very good at cooking. I was wondering how good it would be. I didn't expect that it was really good. When I come to Guangzhou in the future, I will have to bother you, old master and old lady." Old Master Fong smiled and said, "Not at all. Treat this place as your home. When you come to Guangzhou in the future, you can stay here and chat with me." Fong Lu joked, "Grandpa, Qinsheng is a busy man. When I was in Beijing, I had to make an appointment with him half a month in advance if I wanted to invite him to dinner. It's good for young people to be busy. Young people from families like yours. If you don't work hard in your career, what else can you pursue?" Old Master Fong said calmly. Of course, he didn't say that the only thing left was to spend money and enjoy life. Life would be so empty if you spend your whole life enjoying it. "Old Master, let me propose a toast to you with tea instead of wine. I wish you and Grandma good health and good luck." Qinsheng picked up the teacup and offered a toast. Since he was going to visit the old leader in the evening, Qinsheng didn't drink. Otherwise, people would think that it was disrespectful. However, Fong Ti and I had promised that they would drink to their heart's content after the visit. After lunch, Qinsheng went out for a walk with old Master Fong. Although the weather was not very hot, people in Guangzhou were already wearing short-sleeve shirts. Flowers and plants were blooming under the green trees. Such an environment was really good. Qinsheng thought about building a private garden like this in Beijing in the future. Even if it was on the weekends, it would be good to relax. Old Master Fong and Qinsheng walked in front, while Fong Lu and Fong Ti and I followed behind them. However, they kept a suitable distance. As for Fong Tianya's parents, they had already returned to the city. They would only come back every few days. Today, they were so busy because of Qinsheng. Fong Ti and I said half-jokingly, "Alas, Lulu, after getting along with Qinsheng these days, I feel that we are quite congenial. If it weren't for the fact that he is already engaged and his engagement partner is so outstanding, I would have tricked him into becoming the son-in-law of our Fong family." Hearing this, Fong Lu said embarrassedly, "Uncle, why are you becoming more and more improper? I didn't say that I would marry you. Why are you in such a hurry? Do you like Qinsheng? Lulu, don't you already have someone you like? Why are you falling in love with him? This is not good." Fong Ti and I looked very serious as he said this. Fong Lu was completely speechless. Fong Lu was completely speechless. In any case, if she continued to speak, it would only make things worse. She knew herself well enough to not cross the line with Qinsheng. She did not even want to think about it. Otherwise, she would die a horrible death. Although she admired Qinsheng very much, she knew that she could not control him. Even if Qinsheng had not been engaged, she would not have chosen him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.